Right. Welcome to the Comics Aficionados live right here on Thinking Critical YouTube. Your Saturday morning delight has returned, and we do have a special guest for everyone to speak to. A man behind so many stories with Spider-Man. He's also got E-Ratic. He's also directed stuff with Cabin Fever. I think there was a sniper movie in there. How you doing, Kaare Andrews? Kaare Andrews.
Kaare, like Atari. Yeah, great. Happy to be here.
Oh, very nice. And are you in Canada still?
Yeah, I'm like in the suburbs of Vancouver. So West Coast is a little early, but not too bad. Not too bad.
So you're not in the Scatch anymore.
No, I grew up in Saskatoon, Saskatchewan, home of Tom Grummett, and then slowly made my way to art school in Calgary, Alberta, where I dropped out, same as art school that John Byrne dropped out of, and Gary Nord, and then ended up in Vancouver. Yeah. Very
nice. So yeah, I've worked with a lot of Canadians when I was in the military, but they're all from like the Scotia, Nova Scotia.
Oh yeah. That's a wild side of Canada right there.
Yeah, they had some stories. They were in the Navy.
Yeah, no, I bet
those guys. Yeah, you don't want to hear that kind of stuff. But we're going to talk about some comic book things. We do have the rest of the panel to mention here. Josh, you decided to take 3 weeks off.
Well, it depends on how you look at it. I decided to work my day job 3 weeks in a row, and I wouldn't even say decided. It was a side effect of an employee deciding they wanted to cuss out a boss and not have a job anymore. So, but yeah, no, I'm happy to be back. I'm ready to talk comics. It felt weird not being on here 3 weeks in a row. It was very strange. Very strange.
Yeah, to make room for you, we decided to kick Doc.
Wow. Hey, sorry, Doc.
No, actually, Doc, I think he had some plans. I think his girlfriend decided that she was going to take a Saturday this week.
Is that a challenge for me to give my best Docness for this stream?
Whoa,
you're the Doc this week, Josh.
Yeah,
okay.
Good.
I need to go find my fake beard real quick and put it on and go smoke like a couple packs of cigarettes to get that gruff.
What's her name?
Her name is Tina. She talks like this.
What else we got? We do have Yule Carter for Fantastic Comics, and you had the interview with Joe Casey this week. How did it all go?
I recommend everybody go check Fantastic Comics out on YouTube. And the Joe Casey interview was pretty good. I mean, some of my jokes were kind of lead balloony, but overall it was really good. And I got some nuggets out of him that you probably aren't going to get from normal interview type stuff. Maybe Kaare can attest to my style, which has progressed since then. But, I just try and bring up stuff that's a little bit more deep comic book dives that aren't necessarily Joe Casey, and then bring it back to him and then talk about his stuff, talk about the industry, and then, like I said, blow some jokes.
Very nice. So you did dad jokes?
No. I was trying to get him to spill the beans on how horrible Brian Michael Bendis is as a person. He's I'm not going to take that bait. And I'm like, oh, damn. I thought like, I had people tell me like, oh, I don't know if you should have done that. And I thought I was taking one of the most, nobody really has anything real bad to say about Brian Michael Bendis personally, ever. I've heard, like a nice guy. Yeah, pretty nice guy. So I thought I was going for, hey, can you tell me something bad about, Mother Teresa or something like that, and it still didn't work.
There you go.
We've also got Jim from Weird Science. How you doing, Jim?
Good. I was watching Yule's show, and I was even cringing when that happened. I was like, what is he doing? Oh,
well, he made me explain myself, too, and I was like, that's
and that's good. The worst, when you have to explain your joke. Yeah. It's died. It's died on the vine there. And plus, Josh, if you want to do a doc deal, just yell about tarot cards throughout the whole episode, and we'll be good.
Tarot cards, throwing people into the sun.
Exactly. Yeah. But glad to be here. Thanks for joining us, Kaare. That's awesome.
Yeah, I'm happy to be here. I listen to you guys every now and then. Like, awesome. I think it's a good show. It gets a little spicy sometimes, but especially when I'm doing like chores around the house and I need something long to listen to. I've listened to many of these episodes.
Awesome. All right, so Jim, everyone's wondering, did you almost die this week?
Almost. Well, I ended up this week, I ended up making ribs, and Sully gave me a full recipe to make ribs. And as I was eating them, I did almost choke on a bit of a end bone type deal, but it was small enough. I didn't die, but I did think so. Now I keep track like a checklist of, well, that was close enough, but I did not die. The ribs were great, Sully. I'm actually making more
Sully's
this week.
rib recipe almost murdered you.
Yeah. Yep, I blamed Sully. That and when he told me that he loved Alyssa Wong's alligator Loki, that almost killed me actually by just, passing out and whatnot.
It happens.
Well, we're glad you made it, Jim.
Yes, I'm glad to be here.
I'm glad you're
And
here, too.
Jim and I had some fun this week. We recorded our first Hot or Not thing for the Patreon stuff. And
Yep.
we're going to be doing more stuff on your Patreon next week as well.
Yep, we're tied to the hip now.
Absolutely. And last but not least, we do have Eric O'Sullivan, the Sultan of Soup himself,
Hello.
returning to the channel. And you have
Thank
a
you.
wonderful shirt, sir.
I do. Look at
no
this shirt.
rib stains on it. Where's the barbecue sauce?
Every t-shirt I own has the same stain in the same place. Like you'd think I'd figured out how to eat after 50 years on the planet, but no, not at all. But you can get your own shirt, your own Comics Aficionados shirt in the shop here in the link below. Get your own. I got a couple. It's true.
Absolutely.
They look great. I love this. I love this. The evolution to the Superman. It's a great design.
Well, thank you very much. And we are going to talk about the Patreon real quick because we started that this week. And we are going to give a shout out to the supporters. And they're all going to have their own superhero names and cities to protect. First off, JK, a.k.a. Justice Kicker, is protecting the people of Nerd Haven. Thank you very much, JK. Yule Carter, also known as the Blue Heel, protecting the streets of Berkeley, California. Marvel 2099, also known as Future Flare, protecting the people of Nova City. Special thank you to you. Jack Halsey, known as Jackson Forever in Independence, protecting those people. Matthew Worley, also known as Mighty Matt, protecting the people of Metropolis. It only makes sense. Weird Science Jim, thank you for supporting the channel. You're known as the Steel City Cynic, protecting the people of Pittsburgh. Jordan Fugate is the Ember Enforcer, protecting the people of Jackson, Kentucky. Jonathan Spain is known as the Sidewalk Savior, and he's protecting the people in Alley Side. And then finally, Charlie Reddick, a.k.a. the Plasma Pulsar, is protecting the dark abyss of the cosmos. And thank you very much to everybody for backing the first week of Patreon. We got a lot of new content coming up. Actually, more exclusive content on Patreon than you'll get on YouTube. So definitely shout out. And if you're interested in supporting Thinking Critical on Patreon, there's a link in the video description. But now that we've got that out of the way, let's talk to Kaare Andrews. You have a sequel coming up to a comic book that is infamous. Is this true?
Yeah, I do. I have a sequel to a 17-year-old series.
Doc's not here. Oh my gosh.
So we dropped out of the blue this announcement for Spider-Man Reign 2, which is it's a pretty nutty idea to do a sequel to a series that came out so long ago. But listen, I think I think creatively it's super interesting to do that, and I thought it was pretty ballsy in Marvel to want to do that. So we're just jumping in, and I know all that comes along with the first Spider-Man Reign. I lived it, I drew it, I created it. It's been a long time. It's still in the news like every month. It's in a top 10 poll of whatever most darkest or craziest or most dystopic or whatever that is. It's an infamous series. So I think you're going to have to buy it because we've already shown that we will go places that you may not expect. Like you don't know what's going to happen in that series. So it's got infamy. The guardrails are off. It's gonna blow some doors off. And I think it will stir the conversation in a way that the first one did. That's we got to live up to that legacy.
So you're leading into the controversy.
Well, I'm not leading away from it. I think the worst art is art that tries to play safe. So you want to be able to challenge people and do things unexpected. You have to lean into this stuff, like the Mark Miller doesn't lean away from the crazy stuff he does, like that's really what art is about from a creative stance. Like, this is the pool where you jump in with the sharks. You don't clear the pool out before you jump in.
And I imagine we can't get too many details yet because they've really just announced that a sequel is going to happen. They haven't really said when it's going to happen or what the story is. And we certainly haven't seen any covers or anything like that. But it is an interesting story. Radioactive spider semen isn't my favorite trope that was introduced into Spider-Man, but it's still in there when it's in like the top 10 most infamous Spider-Man stories.
That's not actually in the book. That's not actually in the first series. I mean, you could say it's alluded to, or you could say it's whatever, but that's the thing it's known most for isn't actually in the pages. So it's interesting. It's been interesting to watch, to make something like that and to see it happen and to see it like get this this reputation or legacy or whatever you want to call it, but
it has a life of its own, right?
Yeah, but that's what's cool about it. That's what's cool about making this stuff. Like, here's what's interesting about Spider-Man Rain. Like, it's so, like every now when you do creative stuff, when you make stories or direct movies or whatever you do in the creative, write books, whatever you do, you will unexpectedly affect people's lives. And I've had with Rain, I've had two people on two separate occasions come up to me in person at a show and be like, listen, I was in a really dark space and like that book saved my life, is how they put it. And it's so like, that's the only project I've done where that's happened. And that's been twice. So it's very weird. You put these things up into the air and they have a life of their own, and they get, that story gets retold in different ways and becomes like part of pop culture, part of like a bigger conversation. But really, that's just one of my many projects that I did like, almost 20 years ago. So it's fun. It's fun to jump back in and be like, well, what are we going to do this time? Like, what, that book is so crazy. Like, admittedly so. Like, what can we do to get back into that way of telling stories? So it's pretty fun. Creatively.
Yeah, because like you mentioned, it's still being talked about. There will be top 10 best Spider-Man story lists that'll come out in the next 6 months, and it'll be on there. And there'll be top 10 infamous Spider-Man comic books, and it'll be on that list, and people are still talking about it. I remember, we've had Eric Canetti here on the channel a couple of times, and he decided he was going to take some chances when he got his chance on Spider-Man. And he went a different direction with the Spider-Man character, and some people thought it was amazing, but a lot of people didn't like it because it wasn't what they thought Spider-Man should be.
Yeah, well, here's the trick with art is if you try to generate a result, right? If your goal is to generate like, I want to get as much positive reception for the work I do, well, you're no longer making art. You're like a politician, and politicians don't make art. Like, you have to jump in with your knives out, and you just have to go do a thing. And almost the weird thing about it is, whatever the tone of that reception, whether it's good or bad or controversial or embraced or whatever that is, like, you just want it to be received. Like, the worst thing in art isn't that it might be talked about in a bad way or criticized or made fun of or whatever. Like, that's not the worst. The worst thing is just no one notices. Like, that's the worst thing in art. Like, that is the death. Like, if you're an artist that makes art that no one notices, well, you're not going to be around for long. Like, that's the trick of it. But that's why I wanted to jump on this show, because when I was growing up, we had Comic Book Buyer's Guide, we had Comics Journal, Wizard Magazine. Then we had the TV shows like Prisoners of Gravity or whatever. And then that conversation moved on to the digital world, where it was like Newsarama and CBR. But it's
message boards.
It's the message boards, but it's changing again. Those ways of communicating with each other and having the conversation are dying. And the new space seems to be, to me anyways, this YouTube space. But this YouTube space is a weird space. It's a space where you're not supposed, as a pro, maybe you're not supposed to be on this space. Like maybe you're not allowed on this space. Like maybe you shouldn't do this space. But I think this is like, you need to go where the conversation's happening. And I think a show like this in today's world is where the conversation's happening. And the more we can, I mean, that's why I'm here. Really. I want to normalize people being on these shows. Like the more we can have that lost connection between the artist, the art, and the audience, like that's the triangle. And I think that triangle's a bit broken. So I'm really here as an advocate for like, I want to have that conversation somewhere. And this is the where, I think.
Well, I do appreciate it. There definitely feels like there's a disconnect. I mean, you've been in the comic book industry for a very long time. You started out working at comic book shops. Now you own your own shop. And I imagine you remember the talk around Spider-Man Reign and some of the things that were coming out at the time. And we want to move that conversation forward. We want to have it here, right?
That's right.
You are the biggest Spider-Man nerd on the panel, right?
Yeah, totally. I remember that. It was very infamous. But people get crazy about things. I think the thing that's shocking for a lot of people, some people new to the comic book industry, is that fans are very, you can save someone's life and then they want to kill you. The gamut of craziness within fandom is like really present in a small amount of people in a comic book community.
But it's not. It's like that. Even the crazy reaction. That's actually I think it's a healthy reaction. Like, look, if you remember back, remember when Mark Miller was blowing up on Ultimates? Like, there was a moment there where he was getting nothing but hate from the fans, right? Because he was blowing up. It's like it's almost it's almost like a natural response to Michael Bendis had his moment of just people kind of going against him. Like everyone who kind of starts blowing up has this moment of like it's like waves, and it's like sports. Well, if you watch people talk about sports, they're all like, that guy shouldn't be on the field, that guy sucks. So it's like if you can, the mistake is to misinterpret that passion and take it personally. Like, I mean, I've been around for so long, like I can take it. Like I know that when someone reacts to the work, they're not reacting against me personally. And it's actually good. Like I want that. I don't want to like provoke people, but I don't mind the passion blowing up. Like I think that's good. I think it's healthy.
I like what you said about you even if you want that reaction, whether it's positive or negative. And I think in my time of writing reviews, the people that I've written reviews with, we'd always talked about the worst thing we ever encountered was being apathetic towards a project.
Oh yeah. And
you're right, because that will kill something faster than anything. Even if someone dislikes something, they're going to talk about it, and it's usually going to create a conversation where the discourse may be I dislike it, but someone's going to like it, and they can explain why. Personal taste is personal taste. It will always be there. But I also agree with you. If you're going to be in any type of entertainment industry, whether you're writing, doing art, television, film, you've got to have a thick skin, because you're going to have those loud voices, especially in this day and age, coming at you to say whatever.
Yeah. Well, I think the modern mistake we've made is that those loud voices are wrong and hateful. Like, I don't think that's true.
Yeah.
I think loud voices are passionate, and it's like, you need to understand that it's part of a healthy response to life. For instance, one of my favorite movies of all time, The Shining, when it came out, people hated that movie. It won the Razzie of the year. Jack Nicholson won the Razzie for the worst performance of the year. That movie, Stephen King, the author, came out publicly saying he hated it. People hated that movie, but it has transcended into one of my favorite movies of all time. And I think that's what art has the power to do. Like, is you want that response, and you don't want to provoke people, and you don't want people to hate things, but as long as they're passionate about what you do, it's okay. Like, it's okay if they do, because you don't know how that thing's going to swing around later. And it can totally swing around later. And on the inverse, that thing that we all loved, the movie The Artist won 30 Academy Awards. I've never seen that movie. I've never seen that movie. Not because it's only because it just doesn't. It looks a bit boring. I just have no interest in seeing it. So people forget about that movie. But it came out. It was like the talk of the town. But those things that we in the moment value so much and everyone loves can also just float away. So you never know what the response is going to be. And you can't be as a creative, you have to know that those arrows are coming and they're not bad. Like that's okay. It's okay to get like, an arrow through the head every now and then. It's kind of interesting and fun, to be honest.
Wild
You
and crazy
mentioned
guy.
like sports fans, and people will start talking about my team as if they own the Chiefs or whatever, and maybe you get a little bit annoyed because they talk too loud and they're calling for the backup quarterback. But those are also the guys that bought 10 jerseys at $140 a pop, and also have NFL game day on the weekend, for $400 a year, because they're so heavily invested. They do think they're a part of the team, and it kind of felt like that, back in the day. It doesn't feel like that so much where you were a DC guy or you're a Marvel guy and you went to bat for your team, because it's clear that Batman is a better superhero than Spider-Man. It doesn't matter what anyone says.
But I think sports fans, they are part of the team. Like,
Yeah.
they actually are part of the team, like socially, like the way we interact with the world. Like,
Yeah, I
if you wear
even
those
go like,
jerseys and you have those heated discussions with your friends, you are part of that process. Like that is the part that's valuable.
yeah.
That's
As
why
a
you stay
sports
away
fan-
from Eagles fans.
No, that's the best fans.
That's
And that's
exactly
the
the
thing.
reason
I
to stay
actually
away.
look at, like you're saying about sports, that's just something you love so much, like comics, that it almost becomes like your family as well. That you're the one yelling. The minute they say something bad about it, you flip out at them. But it never is like a hateful type of deal, except, maybe the Philadelphia fans. But still, you end up where you want to defend the thing, even though you're yelling about how much you don't like it because you love it so much. And nowadays, like you said, Kari, I think there are a lot of writers that end up trying to provoke things. They go into a story trying to provoke it, and then it just ends up being a fight, not a discussion, not a fan thing. It just becomes just a brawl.
That's the same mistake of trying to create something that will be loved.
Yeah,
Like, that's a mistake. Creatively, that's a mistake. What if you're trying to create something that will be hated? That's a mistake. Like, if you're trying to, like, if you go into a relationship with a girl or boy, whatever your thing is, if you go into that relationship with like, I want out of this relationship to be loved, it's like, well, what? I don't. Is that an honest approach to relationship? Or are you just creating expectations that you will never meet because you're trying to get a result? Like you don't go to a meal and be like, I just want to be full. Like, it's just like, you want to enjoy each bite. You want to enjoy cutting the steak. You want to enjoy eating the steak. You want to enjoy the ambience. And, it's actually a hateful response is actually part of the fun of it. Like, if you go to a restaurant that sucks, it's kind of fun to tell people, I was in the worst restaurant ever. Oh my God. I ordered a steak and like that's part of the fun. That's part of the process. And it's part of the fun. And I think the writers have, that's a hard business, because as an artist, you're instantly shielded, because I can show you a piece of art in a split second and you'll know if you like it or hate it. So as artists, visual artists, we have a power that we can just share something. And even if that guy doesn't like it, these two will love it. Or maybe everyone hates it, or maybe everyone loves it. You don't know, but instantly. As a writer, someone has to read the work. Someone else is drawing the work. It's so nebulous. And I think that can create a lot of anxiety and panic in the creative process. And I think, listen, we had the artists strike out and do Image Comics. It had big, amazing boom, and then it spiraled out. And I think the same thing has happened recently with the writers. The writers had their Image moment, and then they kind of spiraled out. And now we're waiting for the next thing, whatever that's going to be. Like, it's
Letterers, really?
Maybe
Letterers are going to
everyone going to Substack and
the Substack. Yeah, I don't know. It's weird. I mean, we're going to have to talk about this later, but I think, but this idea that everything is content right now is an idea that was kind of brought to the landscape by Bill Gates.
Do you hate that word?
I hate that word.
Every comic book creator hates that word. It's art.
Yeah, well, the real creators do, because here's how you monetize someone else's art. You call it content, because art. If I'm an artist, that means I am doing something that, by definition, you can't do. By definition. So if you're a businessman and you want to control that thing that you can't do, you have to call it content to contain it and to make it anonymous, and then to monetize it. And once you've done that process, you say, well, I can do that again. And then you actually not just purposely devaluing the art, you actually have devalued it for yourself, and that just becomes a bulk thing. But the mistake is that's not just a mistake on the Uber level, like the Bill Gates level or the Microsoft level or the whatever Lionsgate Studios level or the executive level. That same thing can trickle all the way down to a writer. So if a writer has a stable of 4 artists, 5 artists, I think you can create a situation where you think of yourself as creating the content and these guys that draw it are just on your team. And that's when you see the works like just go off a cliff. And the cool thing about Mark Miller is he's always treated his artists as equals and with respect. And you can see that in the work. Like, it's not a mistake that his writing has stayed way up here this whole time, because he doesn't treat his artists as like his content for his roster, or, you know, like that's what's kind of happened the last 10 years or so. But I think it's like, that's kind of coming to an end. That's kind of not how it goes anymore.
So it's weird. There was that article out, and I think I sent a link of it to you from Joseph Illich, and he's worked at a lot of places. I think he started out at Milestone as like an assistant editor, kind of worked at a bunch of different companies, worked his way up, and he ended up being editor-in-chief at a Heavy Metal magazine after being like an executive editor, I believe, at Valiant. And he had he paints a very bleak picture when it comes to comic book creators, like the amount of work that you have to put in just to keep up with your deadlines and all the burnout and stuff like that. Is that one of the reasons that you're also a filmmaker and you actually look for other avenues to kind of express yourself creatively, to where you're not just sitting at a table 12 hours a day, 30 days a month, 12 months a year straight?
Well, I'm a weirdo. I want to sit here for 20 hours a day, 12, like 12 days a week. Like this, I get my joy from just getting lost in this process. So the reason I'm a filmmaker is because when I was a kid, I made films. So when I was a kid, I drew comics, I made films. They were all kind of one thing. And I just wanted to do all that stuff. And the world was like, these are different things, and you can maybe do one of them, maybe. And so I tried, and as soon as I got my first job drawing comics, I bought some film gear and moved to Vancouver and started making shorts on my own. Like I just like creating things. I just like that process. It's just so addictive.
Yeah,
but it is,
I do like 60, 65 hours, on the YouTube channel, but
yeah,
I don't really get burnt out because I do genuinely enjoy the interaction.
Anyone who owns their own business.
Yeah.
Anyone who owns their own business is not a 9-to-5er. Like if you own your own business, you're working at least 100 hours a week. Like that's just how it works. Like whether you're sitting down on a chair or whatever, like that's just the job. So I don't know. Here's the weird thing about the arts though, is that the arts is always hard for anyone, whether you're an actor or a singer or a dancer or whatever. Like I pulled up some stats here. The average salary of an actor is $53,000 a year. That's not a lot of
much
money.
in LA.
No, try to live in Vancouver on that income. Like it's hard. The average salary of a musician in the United States is $57,000 a year. The average salary of a dancer in the US is $37,000 a year. Like any of the arts jobs is tough and hard, and you're not supposed to do it, and you're not supposed to be able to do it, and you're not supposed to be able to do it for your entire life. Like that's like, to be able to do any creative job, you're an exception. Like that's just how it is. That's just the artist field. Like if everyone who wanted to act was a famous multi-million-dollar actor, I don't know. Like that doesn't work.
Yeah, some people end up having to.
The only reason there's value in art. The only reason there's value in art is because no one can do it. Like if you went into a crowded room of 100 people anywhere in the world and be like, how many here make their full-time income making art? No one would raise their hands. Like it's a 0% job. There's no job. You're not allowed to do this job. You're not supposed to do this job. You shouldn't do this job. It's hard and it burns people out. But any creative endeavor is hard and burns people out. So I don't know. I think it comes with the territory. And I feel like it ruins people's lives. Some people, but that's actually part of the why it's important. Why we value
success ruins people's lives too. So
oh yeah, yeah.
Especially artists.
it's a whole career of exceptions. Like you have to be the exception to the rule, like on top of the exception to the rule, on top of the exception to the rule, on top of the exception to the rule, to have any career in the arts, especially comic books.
Yeah,
there's
no
so many
one's ever
artists.
sorry. No, let me do it. No one's ever really discovered either. They're working forever to get to the point where they're discovered, and then it's like a meteoric rise, or something like that. It's anyway. Sorry,
That's what Rick Remender said. He said they called him an overnight success, even though he'd been writing comic books for 10 years.
Yeah,
before
I remember when Steve McNiven was one of the young guns, but he had already been working at Marvel for like 10 years or something like that.
Oh, all those young guns are like
Stormbreakers are always like somebody's like, this guy has worked on freaking like the Avengers before. Why is this guy a Stormbreaker? It's supposed to be your up and coming artist.
I think what's weird, I've been reading the graphic novel I Am Stan, and it's really interesting to kind of, and I think that storytelling is a bit slanted. It feels like a bit slanted. I mean, it's a story. It's not it's a dramatization, but it is interesting to like kind of see that these same things we talk about in comic books were happening back then. The clash between the writer and the artist, the value, who created this, who created that, who gets paid what, who gets paid this. I think it's very interesting. I would love to see that dramatized. I'd love to see those early days of Stan and Jack and John Buscema and that whole kind of Mad Men-esque world. I think that would be a cool little show, to be honest.
If you want to get people mad, take a side between Stan and Jack.
Yeah,
you will get a lot of hate one way or the other.
Right. But also, isn't that actually part of the fun of comics, that we have these legendary stories of like Stan and Jack, and then the battle and the reconciliation and the the love and I think that's part of the passion of comics. It's good.
The passion is good. It seems like sometimes it's a little bit misplaced nowadays, though. I think some people are going to. On every side, you just go a little bit too far sometimes. But at least there are some people that still care.
Well, I think everyone doesn't it feel like everyone's deranged right now.
Yes,
everyone feels so deranged.
It still feels like comics, though.
Like tribes, like you get good persons and bad persons, and it's like, when did this happen? I just want to buy funny books and enjoy them.
Yeah. Well, the tribes were different back then. The tribes when we were kids was probably like Marvel versus DC. Like those were the tribes. Right. You're a Marvel guy or a DC guy. And Marvel was better than DC except for Batman, whatever that was.
Crazy take.
But now the tribes are kind of like turned political or something. I don't know. It's or ideological. Like they're kind of they're not. You don't see those tribes in comics anymore. They're like social. They're out of comics.
Yep.
I think it's healthier in comics.
Moved into everything now, though. It's ruined everything that was fun.
But I think it's it's a control mechanism. Like the fastest way I can control you and be like, there's an orange team and a purple team. Just so you know, the orange team they kill dogs.
Yes, they're evil.
Now, what do you want for dinner? You want pizza or spaghetti? I want pizza. Well, the orange team, they eat the pizza. Oh, I guess I'll have the spaghetti then. Okay, great. You chose spaghetti, my favorite. Like that's the like just that.
Yeah, but who makes the rice you're eating? That's the important thing. I guess that's a big deal. I don't.
But that trick is being like played on every level of society. It feels like every level of society right now.
Oh, it is. It is. I'm there's not much more to say, but you're right. It is, and you can't because I hate this. It's this whole like generalization of if you're this, then you're that. Meanwhile, I'm over here like walking the beat of my own drum. I'm specifically thinking back when I lived in Los Angeles and they opened the first Chick-fil-A. And there was all the the protesting going on. They opened Chick-fil-A, right? So then I'm walking up, and Kaare, since we don't know each other, I'll just throw it out there. I'm a gay man, but I'm walking up there, and I've got all these people that I know that are protesting. They're like, "Oh my God, you're here!" And I'm like, "Yeah." And then I walk up and get in line.
Chicken sandwich.
Like I'm hungry.
I haven't had Chick-fil-A in 6 years. I'm getting freaking Chick-fil-A.
Yeah, I think the healthiest stance in life is always like the contradiction. I think you want to be a contradiction in all parts of life. And if you ever think I'm part of your team, you're wrong. I'm not part of your team, and I'm not part of your team, and I'm not part of your team. Like, especially when you're trying to make art, like the worst thing you can be as an artist is a propagandist. Like if you're trying to sell someone else's ideas as art, oh my God, you need like you're making
So that one
valuable
artist
art.
at Marvel, it's okay that he got ostracized because he was doing art like that.
Yeah, he fully.
I don't know.
You
I don't
talking
know.
about the guy
I
on
don't know the
X-Men?
artist. You're talking about.
No, not that guy. Was it the Immortal Hulk guy? No.
Oh,
No,
Joe
yeah.
Bennett.
Joe
Hmm.
Bennett had some. They
Yeah.
thought it was anti-Semitic, and then there was some political
He was
stuff,
written backwards.
some Muslim
Hey,
stuff.
hey, I'm
in-
just asking to
Yeah.
go along with this because that's really the only instance of a comic book dude I can think of doing that
Well,
kind of
I
stuff.
think what you'll find in comics is the artists, because we're living in an ideological age.
Mhm.
The visual artists can't access. They're not the propagandists because
Okay.
they're making the visual art. Whereas the writers, they have a bit of a weakness in that area sometimes, or they can, because in today's age, like in the Stan and Jack age, Stan would come up with an idea and call Jack and be like, "Here's what I'm thinking, true believer," and then Jack would draw a story, and then Stan would dialogue the story. I think that's actually a very healthy way of, and it made great comics. But in today's world, where for the past 10 years, where the writers have kind of risen up, and maybe like a full script now is standard. The Marvel style isn't around much anymore. And if you're giving the writers that much power and influence over the story, that's the soft spot for. And I'm not saying there are writers that are propagandists. I just mean art in general. Like if they're not your ideas coming from your heart onto this thing that can be reinterpreted in different ways by different people, like that's really what art should be. Like you should, like if you read my art and someone else reads my story, you should have different takes on what they mean and what's underneath it. But if it's too up there, if it's too surface level, if it's like a statement on, I don't know, life, that like in a surface, like that's what you call it, surface. If it's too surface, if it's too plain, it's not true anymore, because that's not how the world works. But it's just like that's just you wearing your flag on over your clothes. Like real art needs to sit under, like.
So you think that's one of the things that has hurt comic book art, is the writers having so much say in the story and them not really being a part of the creative process? They're just part of the output, but they're not part of the input itself into what's going to make the heart and soul of the story and what's going to make these things all happen. They don't get any say in it. They're just kind of,
well, here's my take.
the writer's bidding.
My take is our society is so deranged at the moment, and no one's safe. No one's safe from getting ostracized or canceled or whatever.
Yeah.
And actually the writers have the worst time of it, because as an
Bulletproof.
artist, I can just show you my art and walk away, and I'm out. Like you either love it or hate it or whatnot. But a writer, their value you have to invest to get it. And then it's just in today's world where everything is propagandized one way or the other, the writers have it the worst.
Yeah.
Because they have the least defenses against the social current right now.
My thing is, and being a reviewer, and I think Josh will agree too, is when you end up doing a review, or even just somebody getting on social media and saying you like things, it's become such a thing that if you don't like something, you become like just pointed at as you're this or that. It's not just that you didn't like the story; it's that you're this sort of hater, or you're over the top with this, and then other people use the liking that story as like a signal of, look, I'm a great person, and I just don't get it. I just a story could be fully like a message could be the greatest message ever, but if the story is bad, it's bad, and you're not going against the whole concept. You're just, rating that or saying you just didn't like it. That doesn't make you a good or bad person. It drives me nuts.
Yeah, that's that whole orange team, purple team.
Yeah, it is. Yeah.
And I think, I think it's how do you fight that? How do you battle that? Well, as an artist, it's really easy. You just make great art.
Yeah,
like you just visually make great art. As a writer, I think it's harder to battle it because your job is less safe. So I don't know what if I had a writer friend on mine here. What would I tell them? I would tell them make more complicated stories.
Agreed.
And don't keep your politics off social media, because if I know your politics, I'm gonna imagine you're
you start
writing,
looking at it.
Yeah. But if you keep those politics or whatever, don't call them politics, call them
I like you said
Yeah.
ideals earlier.
ideals. Yeah,
Yeah,
keep
ideals.
your ideals underneath and off
Yeah.
social media, and make your stories complicated and full of life. And then you can have all those things will come up anyways, right? Your
Mhm.
passions, your beliefs, all that, your takes on life. I want to see that stuff. I want to read it. I want your contradictions, your moral contradictions in there.
Agreed.
Yeah.
Like I'm looking for that complicated thing that happens with great storytelling. But the armor really for a writer is I think write more complicated stories. And it's hard in comics because comics aren't a complicated medium, which is why we love them. They're just pure visceral.
Yeah.
But
I would disagree. I think you can have complexity in comics, and I think you can do it rather easily. You just have to be more efficient about how you approach it. But
there should be complicated comics. I agree. Right. I think there's just the medium itself is because a 20-page story, visual format just can't hold as much stuff as like a novella or whatever.
Yeah. And like you said,
oh, go ahead.
You go. I was just going to say about the politics and stuff like that and complicated stuff. You also, I find that a lot of these writers stand up using their own view on various characters that should even have different views. You know, they don't go in like the idea of a writer writing a character that they don't necessarily like. That doesn't mean you have to crap on it. If you're a good writer, you write a good story. And it seems like a lot of times once you know those political views, somebody will write the same thing for, say, a Spider-Man as they would for an Iron Man, as they would for a Captain America. And it just doesn't work then. And then it becomes really surface level and really like glaring.
Yeah. Well, I think writers have been tricked. Writers have been tricked into believing they will be praised for steering culture through storytelling. I don't think it's art. Art not supposed to work like art is not a control. It's not supposed to be a control mechanism for society. Like it's not supposed to be the social police through art. Like how art really works is it should be unknown. Like you're at the edges of the unknown, right? Because, and how I know this is because the worst criticism you can give an artist, whether it's a writer or an artist, the worst thing you can tell about them is that, oh, they're hacking it out. Oh, we've seen this before. They've done this before. Even though it was amazing, this could be the most like esteemed writer in the planet. But if he does the same thing twice, he's now failed at his job. And so every time you come out, every story, it has to be towards the unknown. And how people respond to it, I think we have this mechanism inside that's like, is there truth in this unknown? If the unknown is towards truth, like I haven't seen this before, this is new, but it feels real. Like I know it's true. Like that's the response you really want as an artist. But if you start to derange yourself, if your unknown is towards something that's not true or fake or false or phony or pretend, you're not going to have a good result. I don't know. It's tricky. Tricky times. I feel bad for the writers because it's tricky times for them right now.
I do too. I said the worst thing you could say about it. I said the worst.
I said it.
Like last week.
You're hurt my feelings, Yule.
You know what? They're prissy bitches, man. Just joking.
Go ahead, Eric.
But like last week, there was like, okay, Fire and Ice, Welcome to Smallville #1 came out for DC Comics. And I said, perhaps the worst thing you could say about an in continuity DC superhero comic book, it was completely harmless. And I just, and once I wrote that and published and hit tweet, I was like, that's probably the meanest thing you can say about a superhero comic book. Like, you know, something that's supposed to be engaging, entertaining, and escapism.
Right.
Completely harmless.
I haven't read the book, so I don't know. It could be amazing. I have no comment about the book, but your statement about something being harmless, I think the why that's so biting is because underneath harmless is meaningless. Now here's what's tricky. Why is harmless really? Why does it really mean meaningless? And does to harm someone mean to embed it with meaning? I think it does. Like I think the ability to harm someone means that it has meaning in it. So you can harm someone in a good way or a bad way. You're changing their body physically through your art. And I don't know. That's the juice, man. That's what I want to do when I make stuff. Like I want to change people's lives, you know, like it's like, that's every time I swing, I take big swings and they don't always work. but at least you're swinging big. Like you want to see those big swings. I think that's the fun. That's the fun of it. You want to see Steven Spielberg not tell a story about his own life when he was a kid about some, like, who cares? I'm not going to see that movie, The Fableman. Love that director, but I want to see him take a big swing. I want to see him like risk it all. I want to see Stanley Kubrick make The Shining. Like back in the day, this amazing auteur makes a horror movie. Like what? Like I want that. That's what I want in my art.
I'm with you on that one. If I know that there's a writer or an artist that's going to take more of a risk, I'm more inclined to pick up their book and give it a chance. And you know, like I'll even say specifically, I'll have conversations about Grant Morrison as a writer, and people are like, yeah, but like he has a lot of misses. Yeah, but when he nails it, and it's worth that risk. And you know, you look at the people that are kind of viewed as the kind of evergreen people or the evergreen books within comics. And it's usually people that weren't afraid to take a risk. And at the time, you know, probably got a lot of pushback and flack for certain reasons. Going too dark, changing character, but
not afraid, probably couldn't stop themselves. Like when I read Mark Millar's work, it's like, oh, dude can't stop himself from taking risks. Like, you know, like that's the energy behind his work. It's like, oh, he just fucking can't stop himself. Like that's what I want to see.
Yeah, definitely in that last issue of Big Game, he was doing things I wasn't expecting. But we do have a lot of people chiming in here, Kaare, and they want to hear from you. Kenneth first says, hello, gents, and hello to our special guests. Great to see you all. And Josh, welcome back. You were missed. We needed legitimacy on this kid.
That's right. Don't you forget it. I love you.
Love Wakanda.
Wakanda forever.
That was way in the beginning. You said that.
That's right.
Lade says for Kaare, first question. So what Spider-Man Reign is most known for? Was that your creative decision? I imagine he's talking about the radioactive spider semen. Was it suggested to you, or was that editorial?
Well, again, that's not actually in the book.
It's only implied.
It's
the implication.
I thought the bad thing was the penis in it. You know, remember everybody got bent out of shape.
What's funny is like, when I was a kid, one of the coolest things I've ever bought was the hardcover Electra book by Frank Miller. I always forget the name of it. Electra Lives Again, I think. Mm-hmm. Anyways, in that book, European style oversized graphic novel, hand painted colors over thin line work, blew my mind as a kid. Like, oh my god. And then there's one panel of like Matt Murdock with his wang swinging in the wind as he's running across the rooftops. And as a kid, I'm like, this is crazy. They can do this. This is crazy. And it wasn't sexual. It was just like, dude was just naked, like doing his superhero stuff. And when I did Spider-Man Reign, I was like, well, if Frank Miller did that, why can't I do it? So I rendered old man Peter's Peter. And it was, again, just an old guy sitting alone. He's vulnerable. Like just dramatically, it felt like, oh, he just needs to be vulnerable. And an old naked man is the most vulnerable image I can have in my mind. And I thought if it's too much, they'll tell me. And then surprise, it was too much. And I said, oh, whatever. So I just erased it, handed it back in. But the assistant editor at the time mistakenly put the old page in instead of the fix.
Mistake.
So that issue came out. And all of a sudden I heard, oh my God, Marvel has published Peter's Peter. And I got so excited because I knew people would be talking about it, and I knew I would sell more copies, and I just wanted that audience. Like I just wanted the audience. So for myself, it was amazing. It was a great mistake that people made, and you know, it wasn't my fault because I drew the fix, I replaced the page, and they pulped it, they reprinted it. So now again, it's just vanished. But those little moments, are like,
damn #1. You can't. They'll never reprint it again because of the bad way.
Yeah. So yeah, right. You actually want those. You want, as a creator, those little mistakes are fun and exciting, and that's what you want. And then you know, that was issue 1, and then the revelation that Mary Jane was dead, and then the revelation that Spider-Man, Peter Parker, inadvertently killed her through his own being by radioactive. He's got radioactive blood. Like that's where that came from. Each thing kind of like kept popping back up. So the culmination of it is, you know, maybe like culturally, people remember it for something that's not really in the book. But the whole series was creatively. I own everything creatively, good or bad or middle. And let me tell you, working with Marvel has actually been, for myself, a joy. Like even in the tough times, because creatively, I've never been controlled or dictated to. I've never had editors be like, you have to change this because of this, or like I've just never had that experience with Marvel. And I've worked with Marvel for 20 years. Like it's just not how I've interacted with them, even if I'm doing art or covers or story or whatever. It's always been, maybe I just got lucky, but super healthy, super supportive. I can own all my creative choices. Like it's always been good creatively.
Are you more of a Marvel guy, or were you like growing up?
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Straight up Marvel, except for Batman. Batman was cool, but like I was like the Marvelist of Marvel guys, and I've been reading comics since before I could read words. You know, like I still have an issue when I was 4 years old of, and I knew I was getting comics before that, but that's just the last one I remember reading.
Very nice. Federico de la Casa, love your Iron Fist. It's better than the woke version. I imagine he means the one that's Sword Master is Iron Fist now. How would you like working on Iron Fist? It's a good series.
It was fun, man. It was really good. The thing with Iron Fist was, I really found a lot of inspiration in I had not read it, but the very first story of Iron Fist was so cool and so dark and so like dramatic, and so like the young Danny watching his mom getting ripped apart by wolves, and then training for revenge. Like his whole life was about training to kill someone. What an amazing superhero origin, you know? And then he's at the last moment, he's offered this, like, listen, we know we've set you on this path to train your whole life to kill someone, but we're going to offer you this immortality from the tree of life if you just abandon this dark quest. And he's like, screw that. I'm going to kill that guy. Like, that's so amazing. And that's I was leaning into that first stuff, that high stakes stuff, that kung fu stuff. Like that was fun. I really enjoyed that series.
Caleb says, I'm one of those people that thinks women should be gatekept. Some exceptions from comics, because what the F was the Fire and Ice book? I don't think that all women should be gatekept from comic books because Fire and Ice wasn't great.
I hope whomever that was made for comes out into the local comic book shop and buys those floppies. Seriously, we made you the comics for you. Come and get them.
There are plenty of amazing female writers and artists over the years. I don't think anyone should be gatekept based on their gender or anything.
Well,
I think they should just have standards on the book. Like on the minimum standard is like it's all right, you know. And I think everybody would be fine after that.
There's been bad comics all my life by people I like.
Yes,
you know,
exactly.
I mean, if they were all good, it's kind of like, you know, if they were all good, there wouldn't be the bad one. And sometimes you go back later because they're not making this type of stuff anymore, and you're like, oh man, this really wasn't as bad as I thought. I was just looking at it at that time. And people put work and effort into it, and you can still get enjoyment out of bad stuff.
Yeah, I think it's just a mistake to look at any group as a group, any person as a group. I don't want to be defined as the Norwegian should be kept away from the Spider-Man, like the Canadians who live in, the Canadian Norwegians. I just think like the coolest thing about art is it's like individual. It's like person by person by person, and some people suck and some people are amazing, but you can't tell until you see that one person do that one thing. And if you can start to tell, well, they're probably not artists in the first place. And like, yeah, let's gatekeep the people who aren't artists, but let's like look at each person for what they can do. Like here's the weirdest thing is, so the idea of collectivism, right, is the idea that the group is more important than yourself, and you should subjugate your own passions, your own loves, your own desires, your own abilities for the group. And the coolest thing about superhero comics is that's a medium that by definition is anti-collectivism. Because if you were a collectivist superhero, you would never put on the mask to go out by yourself to fight crime. You would join the police or whatever. You would join a larger body to then maybe be told what to do. But Spider-Man is like the ultimate individual. Batman's the ultimate individual. Superman's the ultimate individual. And we know why we value these stories so much is because we know the world is changed by individuals one at a time doing their fucking thing against the masses. Like that is
classic
And-
Wolverine, dude. Yeah.
And you say that, Kari. I mean, they even brought up Iron Fist. What do you think about having that whole play of you have to be that gender or race or whatever of the character that you're writing then? Because it kind of does become a little
Well,
different.
here's what's weird about that. Like, Danny did not go to China. He went to a mystical, magical land called Kunlun that is not human.
Kind of made up,
humans.
right? Yeah,
they're not humans. Those are not Chinese people in that magical race. They're their own thing. But they we look at them maybe as something else, but that's not. He didn't go to Japan. He didn't go to Africa. He didn't go to Norway. He went to a magical realm. It's like a bit displaced. That's like put on that show. So I think it's irrelevant, to be honest.
I'm with you. He also says Bill Willingham made it loud and clear to stay away from DC, and I agree. Jim Lee's probably in his la 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 land spinning in his chair. There's certainly big news out of there, Kari, with Bill Willingham putting his Fable stuff into public domain. Sounds like DC has a different opinion, and obviously we had Alan Moore come out and his future royalties for television and movies. He wants them to be given away as well. But things happen, I guess.
Well, here's weird. I mean, I haven't read Fables. I know people love it. I haven't read it, but isn't Fables itself based on public domain characters? Isn't that the whole?
Yes.
Yeah. Isn't that I think it's super interesting. I don't know those contracts. Whatever's in those contracts should be honored. Like that's the deal, right? You create your contracts, you have to honor them. Like that's what should happen. But I'd have to see those contracts. But I think it's very interesting as a strategy, as a maneuver to attempt
it's a very artistic way to go after it, right?
Yeah, I think it's a cool little. I want to see what happens next. Like what does that even mean when you take your public domain characters that you've made into a thing that's not public domain, and then you put them back in the public domain as a strategy to fight the corporation? Like, what does that mean? I'm interested to see how that plays out.
Yeah, I like the moxie of Bill Willingham this week. I thought it was cool.
I'm gonna call it Wicked Fables. That's what I'm gonna do. Wicked Fables. It's just all the same.
Kenneth says, I told Wes at the panel when I saw the promo art for Spider-Man Raid 2, I thought of Tom Petty's song Last Dance with Mary Jane. You should reference that in your book. Huh?
That's a good idea. Sure. That's a good idea.
We could have Spider-Man dancing around with Mary Jane's corpse, I guess, like the video.
Sexy.
One thing, like this whole thing about like with corporations, DC and Marvel, and there's historically been all these battles between an individual creator and a large corporation. Like that, there is a weird legacy of that happening in comics. And I think it's more highlighted because we're a bunch of individuals that work with a large corporation. And I think it gets real muddy. Like I made this mistake for a while where I thought I was working for Marvel, but that's not true. Like you don't work for these companies, you work with them, like I'm a sole proprietor. I'm a self-employed technically and also objectively. So like I partnered with Marvel to do Spider-Man Reign 2. So it's a mistake as a creator to Willingham is not doing this, but other creators, and I fell into this trap. Well, like I'm finally working for Marvel. I'm a Marvel guy. Like you're not. You work for yourself, and you have to make each career decision with that attitude, because whoever's running Marvel will change. Like from the time I've been working at Marvel, I think there's been 4 editor-in-chiefs. Like the editors, you'll outlast all your editors. The only editor that's been there longer than me, I think, is Tom Brevoort. And I'm not like the super, I've been doing it for a while, but I'm not like the oldest creator on the block. Like, I'm still like in my prime, I think. But you will outlast these people that make up Marvel, and Marvel will get sold by Disney, and maybe Disney will sell it again to Apple, or who knows what's going to happen. But Marvel itself, or DC itself, it's this weird name that it only means what it means in the day that it means it. So what DC was when Paul Levitz was running it is just a different place than what it means now. Jim Lee's running it. Is he running it? I don't know who's running it. Like, it's just so it's a bit of a mistake to pit like creators against this machine, because that machine is ever changing. But again, these contracts, you sign these contracts to be enforced, and whatever's on that contract, good or bad, that's the agreement. It should be enforced, I think.
Yeah, it's crazy. Back in the day, Marvel used to print like a little contract on the back of checks. So when you endorsed the check, you're signing away your creative rights to the work that you had done. Because
I got those checks. Yeah.
I think we lost Wes.
Oh,
I like that position. He's in.
It's pretty funny.
It looks like he's yelling Eureka.
He's going to say, pull my finger.
No, back in the day, because you had to endorse checks, they would put a little stamp on there, and you were signing your creator rights away because it wasn't in the original contract. So these companies have done some pretty shady things in the past to try and dig your contracts.
Totally. And then you have to fight, and you have to enforce your agreement in the original spirit that you agreed to it upon. It's part of any business, I think.
Yeah, whenever you're fighting the man, people are always going to be on your side. That's how people are. Common Sense says, Mr. Andrews, you made Pei into a great character. She would be a great Iron Fist. It's a shame that she got screwed by Marvel and Alyssa Wong, and they gave it to Lin Lee. Lin Lee is Swordmaster. You didn't know that. You probably
this is why you can't look at the world through these politics or ideologies, because you start getting very deranged.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I didn't make Pei for any type of reason other than I thought it would be, I wanted to flip Danny from being the kid who was trained to being the mentor who trained a kid. And I just thought it would be fun to flip everything. So instead of a young boy, it's a young girl. Like, I just wanted to flip everything. Instead of Earth person being trained by a mystical Kunlun warrior, it'd be the opposite. Like, I just wanted to. So, if you start like trying to think about what Pei, how I created Pei, or how she's been treated as like identity politics, it just doesn't make sense. Nothing makes sense. But the cool thing about,
feel like she was being, I guess, created or not created, but primed to be the next Iron Fist if there was a chance.
Yeah, well, definitely. In the back of my head, I create characters to have a life. So, yeah, I created this little girl. I thought, maybe she'll be Iron Fist one day. Sure, why not? She should be. Why not? But it wasn't. That just was a story. So that story, has changed hands, and they weren't interested in continuing with Pei, but maybe someone else will come back and bring her back. Who knows? She's now in the ether. But
you can't take it personally because you didn't own the character to begin with. It was always a Marvel character, right?
Yeah, the way I look at these characters as a creator, you go in, you play with the toys, and then you walk away. Like, that's just how you do it. There's like, as soon as
it's
you
not
start
like E-Ratic with AWA where that's something that's yours.
Well, E-Ratic is not a creator-owned book. E-Ratic is a book with, I have a large stake in that character, but they can do whatever they want with E-Ratic. That's not my character. I created it, but I don't own it. I don't control that character.
It feels like a Kaare Andrews character.
Well, again, they let me do whatever I want to do. So, like, but I've tried. I like to try different things. So, I like to work with the corporate characters. My passions are Spider-Man and Marvel and and Batman. Those are my passions. So I've done that, and then I did Renato Jones in the creator-owned space. I own that character. I control that character. But I found that a little not as fulfilling as I thought it might be. So with AWA, I tried a new thing where it was like, it wasn't creator-owned, but it was like I have a large stake in that character. And I tried that. That was pretty fun. And then now I'm back doing some Spider-Man stuff. Like, I like to try different things.
Very nice. Calb says, I like what Kaare said about being crazy, but he also be very smart and never apologize. Like the Chainsaw Man author, he's quit the character.
I don't quite understand it, but
don't apologize.
Never apologize.
Well,
Never.
I think you should apologize if you feel if you feel you've done something wrong and you want to make atones, you should, but you should never apologize to try to win public approval. If you're trying to apologize for approval, that's just, oh my God, that's not how
Kaare,
you.
is it weird that I apologize to my wife for stuff I didn't do wrong, but she perceives that potentially I did it wrong, and I don't want to argue.
Well, there's no. That's
I apologized to my wife this morning for something that I said I'll do in like 2 months. So I'm already preemptive.
For waking up.
Yeah, man.
I'm sorry I woke up this morning.
That's just marriage.
My wife gets all my apologies.
Yeah.
Otherwise, I'll say my bad.
Right.
I'll try harder.
I'll
My
be
bad.
better.
Lade wants to see
Kick
you
me.
draw a Spider-Man noir miniseries.
That'd be
People
cool.
like that character.
Yeah. Hey, listen, I love Spider-Man in all forms. So yeah, I'm up for.
So
I'm
you're
up for it.
cool with the Spider-Verse? You know, a lot of people bitch about too many Spider-Man characters.
Yeah. Well, here's the weird thing. Back in the day, I was approached by David Bogart when he was an editor, had just come over to Marvel, and he was editing X-Men Unlimited, and he's like, "Hey, you want to do something?" And I was like, "Sure." Can it be a jam issue? Because I love jam issues. Again, this is my experience with Marvel in general. And they're like, "Okay," and I was like, "Okay, can I bring in Josh Middleton? Can I bring in Troy Nixie? Can I bring in Mike Kunkel, Hero Bear and the Kid? Can I bring in?" And they're like, "Yeah, sure." Like my experience with Marvel has been nothing but creatively, nothing but amazing. So I brought in, like, I gave Josh Middleton, one of my best friends now, his first little Marvel book. I gave Mike Kunkel his first, I guess, and only Marvel thing. And we did this book where I had like every version of the X-Men fighting every version of the X-Men, because I had a little boy character who his mutant power was to dissolve the barriers of these different dimensions. So before Spider-Verse, there was actually an X-Men verse, and I think that's issue, I don't know, 21 or something like that. I don't know. But it has a cover. In my cover, I have like every version of Wolverine fighting
was
every version of
beautiful.
Wolverine.
Yeah, I remember that. That was awesome.
So I don't know. I don't mind that stuff. I think it can be fun, just how you do it. And you know, it was fun to
My
see.
kid loves those Spider-Verse movies.
Yeah, my kids too. Totally.
Dylan says, "Hello, everyone. Wes, is there any chance you'll be making a YouTube channel membership in the near future or a subscribe star? I would like to support the channel, but I hate Patreon for a number of reasons." Likely not in the near future. I literally just launched a TikTok, an Instagram, a Facebook community page, and a Patreon, and I've all done it like within 1 month. And I am a bit overwhelmed at this moment of my life and trying to keep up with everything and getting everything out on time. And I'm just now getting comfortable with my new, in the military, I would have called it my battle rhythm on all the stuff that I'm going to get done. And, this time is allocated for that. So it likely won't happen in the near future, but I can see maybe in a few months there will be a channel membership that'll be with like a smaller version than what we're offering on Patreon, where I'll upload stuff, as private videos that you can view if you're a channel member. But that would probably be in a few months in the future at the earliest.
And
I'll
how
have
does
to get my
that
head
work?
around that.
You're taking, how much time are you spending between, like, you're doing TikTok now? Is that right? TikTok.
I have an
YouTube,
editor that does the TikTok videos for me, thankfully.
Got it.
Wes,
Dance
But,
videos.
I want to
flossing.
know. I want to know why you've been holding out on us and you didn't let us know you're dancing on TikTok.
Yes.
I'm not dancing on TikTok. I'm just taking the best stuff from the channel.
He's
where I'm
a little
freaking out.
behind.
We're making it into a TikTok.
Ice bucket challenge. He's got lined up. All
Surprisingly,
the
those
greats.
videos do better on Instagram than TikTok, but I don't know
Yeah.
how all that stuff works. But it's been a large scale undertaking for 1 month. But it's not fun unless you're doing something that you don't know if you can even achieve it, right?
And listen, how do you guys feel about this whole landscape of comics media changing? I think it's changing towards this space because the other space is floating away. But how do you guys feel about it as people who do this, who live in this space every week?
I feel the best conversations are still at the local comic book shop. And especially when you're talking to younger people too. I had the best conversation with an early 20-something feminist girl who was buying stacks of old Spider-Man. And I got to suggest to her, do you know Ultimate Spider-Man by Bendis, Bagley, and T-Bear? I'm like, she didn't. And I was like, I got that is genuine and it's authentic. I know the conversation's kind of moved to these YouTube spheres and these panel shows, which is great, but there's nothing better than that authentic comic book shop experience, I think.
Well, you are lapped into your local scene and people that live in your area. I think that's why this is opening up. I think it's easier to communicate people face to face. Yes, I'm not looking right into your eyes, but you can see me. You can see how I feel. I can express myself. And I think this is a better medium to communicate with people. And I definitely see a younger generation of consumers aren't really going to websites anymore. Their websites are like television, like for some people. They're moving away from cable. They're moving away from websites, and YouTube and streaming is kind of the way of the future. And if you're a legacy like platform, comic media platform, and you haven't got a robust YouTube presence or a TikTok presence or Rumble or something like that, or even maybe a podcast network, I think you've missed the boat, and it might have passed you by.
Yeah, but I'm gonna agree. Like, I do think this is the future, you know, and I'll even point to Jim. Jim and I, we worked in print for. I mean, we were covering comics before it became the thing that everyone was creating a website to do. You know, I remember back, going back 10, 15 years ago, there were only a handful of sites, and we were kind of lucky enough to kind of start our embark, you know, around that time. And go through, but we both realized, hey, everything's shifting. You know, I moved to YouTube, you moved to YouTube.
It is true. I've seen just the written reviews, especially. Nobody's that concerned with them. They want to see things. They want to be able to, you know, kind of. It's more of an interactive thing, I think. So well, I ended up, like Josh said, we both kind of shifted over to YouTube.
Even strictly coming to numbers, you know, like when I was writing reviews for Batman News, we were getting roughly like 9,000 unique viewers per review that I was writing, and that was the average. And then, you know, now it's the site we're averaging like roughly 1,000. People are wanting what I think is a little easier for them to digest. And you know, if you're going to read a review, you have to sit or read anything. If you have to go read it, you have to sit down. That's where your attention has to be. And I know you hate this word, Kaare, but consumption or content, people are just looking to the most ways they can consume it. I can put a podcast like this on, stream, whatever you want to call it, while I'm driving to work.
Yeah, Kaare said he's doing chores. You could do that stuff.
You know, that's when I take my phone, I look for a long YouTube, because it's just, I think it's easier to navigate than podcasts. I used to listen to more podcasts. I look for a long YouTube. I blank my screen, and then I put in my headphones and I go mow the lawn or you know, work on the house or build a shelf or something like that. Like that's, to me, that's like the sweet spot, because I like to engage my mind and like hear ideas and hear opinions. And you know, if it's in the comic space, well, that's cool. Why not? Like that's cool. And yeah, it's.
Oh, you should listen to my interview with Joe Casey.
Yeah, maybe
there's a plug. Yeah, and even
Jim.
with that deal, like we just did our 502nd podcast, and we've had for DC, so we've had this big thing, and I noticed that even coming to YouTube, putting up a couple videos, and people thought, oh man, it's, you know, you're a rookie. It's almost like that overnight deal concept of the, hey, oh man, it's good that you're doing this. I'm like, I've been doing this for 15 years. And it kind of is a little depressing about the idea of, man,
starting over,
like everything's shifting and now I have to start over because it's shifted a lot to YouTube. I'm like, I have like 4,000 written reviews and people are, this is your first one. And it's depressing, but it's exciting. Like you have Wes saying, like doing something that is new and kind of, you know, starting over is kind of exciting though.
Kenneth says, Wes, you had to go there, didn't you? You had to make that insane take. Batman is not a better hero than Spider-Man. Spider-Man is an all-time hero. I know you're messing around. I'd say Spider-Man and Batman are tied, but Nightwing is definitely a better superhero than Spider-Man.
Absolutely.
Yes. Favorite character.
But when you say that Spider-Man and Batman are like complementary characters, like Batman is like a dark father figure who just doles out punishment and enforces justice through like just pure like subjugation. And Spider-Man is like the young guy flying through, kind of messing up, trying as hard as he can, kind of like doing what he can, flipping through the air. Like they're total opposites.
Yeah. Batman would hate
but there's
Spider-Man
a reason
so
those
much.
are the two entry points for new comic book readers. It's Batman and Spider-Man, because those are the ones that are the most accessible to everybody. You could literally understand where both of them are coming from, no matter where you're from.
Yeah, well, I think they're the archetypes. I think Batman is the father archetype, and Spider-Man is the young man archetype. You know,
and you know, Nightwing's a better version of Spider-Man.
Exactly.
Nightwing sucks.
Oh man, I love Nightwing. He's so underrated. But I also like getting under Kenneth Dowling's skin, so I'm glad that worked. Common Sense says, Mr. Andrews, can you talk about Renato Jones, the 1%? What's your favorite moment? Was a plan to be 2 volumes. I still have them in the promotion ads. And I will be right back.
Yeah. So Renato Jones was like my first truly creator-owned book published. And I just thought if I needed to do a Kratom book, like there should be a reason. And that reason should be, I just need to go as crazy. Like I just need to do things that I can't do in other places to really justify that book. So it turned into quite insane in many levels. Like I did weird things. Like I did fake ads with photos, like fake perfume ads throughout the book. I wanted to be kind of like, originally I thought like, what if I got real ads, like real comics and really sold things? And I thought, what if I did my own ads? Isn't that more fun? And then so kind of like RoboCop, where they had all their fake ads to the movie. I did fake ads throughout the book. And then I got really interested in like double page spreads, because in Marvel or DC, like the page limits are the page limits. So you can't pitch like, hey, I want a 4-page sequence of black pages, because they have to pay you for those pages no matter what's on them. So just in terms of storytelling, Renato Jones, I started doing like double page after double page after double page spread, like just could be the close up of an eye just over 2 pages. Because it was something that I could do there that I couldn't do in another project. And here's what I think the funny thing is about Renato Jones. Like I did Renato Jones like pre Epstein Island, pre all this like awareness of crazy rich people doing horrific things to the world. And I got some letters at the time being like, don't you understand these people with it? You're like, how did it go? The letter was something like scolding me for being mean to rich people because they earned that money or whatever. And then what's funny is I got a follow-up letter from that same guy like years later saying, I just wanted to apologize for writing that letter. I was
I
wrong.
see what happened.
I saw what happened. And like in Renato Jones, in like issue 2, I have kind of a weird Epstein Island situation there. Pre-Epstein Island. I didn't know about Epstein Island. It was just kind of in the air at the time. But I think that book was a little early, and it was a little too crazy, but you know, whatever. I'd rather too crazy than not crazy enough. But yeah, it's fun. Even that series, I'm like, you know, I'm still working on that book in other ways that I can't talk about, but I haven't gone away. Like I'm still kind of have a foot in that Renato Jones world all the time. It was an interesting project. And I originally I did intend it to be just 1 volume, but as I was coming up to the end of that volume, I just had more stories I wanted to tell. So I just asked for another volume, and they gave it to me. Here's the weird thing about comic book sales in general. And this is a weird little cheat code for other creators or whoever. And you can tell me this is from the retailer perspective, but what I heard, and I didn't believe it, I heard whatever book you get, like your sales for number 1 will establish your sales for number 2. And your sales for number 2 are 40% less from your sales number 1. And your sales for issue 3 are 30% less from your sales for issue 2. Your sales for issue 4 are 20% less than your sales from issue 3. And your sales from issue 5 are 10% less than your sales from issue 4. And every issue after that, you'll have a 10% reduction in sales again and again and again and again and again. That's just how the direct sales marketing works. That's how retailers order. And I didn't believe it at the time. I thought, well, that's not true. How can that be true? Is it really that formulaic? But when I look at my Renato Jones numbers, I really see like, oh, that really happened. Like your number 1 sales, like just dictates your sales for the rest of your run. Unless every now and then you have a saga that's opposite. But normally 99% of comics, that number 1 issue determines 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. And so it's no wonder why comics have leaned into all these number 1s. It's not just a way to like juice the sales. It's not a stunt. It's like, that's just how comics are ordered. So I totally understand why there's so many 1s. That's just how.
So anything can be a number 1. So you're right. I mean, number 1, comic fans are flakiest people there are. Okay. They come in and then you get speculate. Oh, I'm sorry. It's just I've seen the sales. I know what they are. You know,
it's the blue
always
heel.
the same thing. I mean, what, you don't want to hear this?
No, I do.
But I mean, they're really, I mean, and then you get speculators on top of it. And of course, number 1s are the big deal. Yeah, I mean, I think it usually plateaus around 5 though, and it doesn't always go down, but then eventually if the series isn't, it's very difficult if it's not something mainstream to continue going through 36, 50 issues, 300 if you're like Cerebus and, you know, stuff like that. But too many number ones of the same thing. I mean, what will shock you if you're bagging comic books and you put volume numbers is in 1960 whatever, Daredevil was the first volume, and it went on until they went volume 2 in the late 90s, and now it's like on volume 9. And that's crazy. And what used to be a big deal was Kaare Andrews is doing a year run on Spider-Man, and don't get a new number one. It's in issue 300 or 294 in your McFarlane or whatever the hell it is, and stuff like that. But now it's a number one, and it's kind of a killer, I think. Like, it doesn't bring people necessarily into the store. All it does is get them ready for buying either that series or the collected form of it. And even in trade sales, I'll have the numbers are often the same. You get X and then it's X minus 5, or 50, and on and on. Yeah.
I find the worst thing about it, is like trades. Like when you're trying to find, like if I'm trying to find a trade or show my kids a trade on a shelf, all I see is Batman this, Batman that, Batman here, Batman there, Batman this, that, Batman then, Batman here, Batman now, Batman. Like it's very hard to see. When was each one published?
Mm-hmm.
Like what order if someone wants to get these Batman books, what order should they be read? My little son got into Deadpool in a big way a little while ago, and I was able to get him the Deadpool Essentials, the big volumes, the big thick ones. That was good because they were they were sequentially numbered, and I could really get him the first one and the second one and the third one. But trying to just go to the shop and just get a little volume of a Deadpool book was like, oh my, which one? Like which one? He just read this issue. Which one would fit next? Like it's very hard to decipher that stuff.
Yeah. I want to ask you and Kaare, when you have a series that's going, like you said, and it keeps going down and then plateaus, how much does like a big event in that, like a death of a character or a new character, does that reset the number one kind of deal, or does it just give you that one big pop and then it just goes away again?
I would say it depends on what that thing is. Again, if it's just a one-time thing, not really so much, but it helped with like Captain America, around 20. Well, I mean, Civil War helped, and then him dying helped, I'm thinking about the Brubaker stuff, but, it was probably, it was still high numbers, but when you got into the teens, and I think they did some House of M thing or something like that, it was kind of reaching its numbers, but then it went high, and then, it goes a little higher again, and those people kind of depends if you're the kind of store that has the back issues also. You can get people hooked up.
I was like, when I did that recent issue of Spider-Man, the Zeb Wells issue, I was like, I was curious to see the reaction. So I was just, back in the day, when I first came on the scene, like comic reviews were many, and they were everywhere, and they were awesome. And you could just do a thing and check the internet and kind of see how it was received. And now that's all kind of floated away. Like the people don't do reviews. They still do a little bit of them, but it's not like it used to be. So you kind of have to search for them. Like I don't have a comic book store where I live anymore. Like there's just not one here. I live in the suburbs. I could drive, 40 minutes to a store, but I'm a dad, man. I'm not going to spend 2 hours. I mean, maybe every now and then, but not every week. I'm not going to spend 2 hours trying to navigate my life to make it to a physical store and come back. So it's hard to try to judge. That's why I like these YouTube shows, and they can be a little salty. And I think YouTube upregulates the salt, to be honest. Like I think that's part of the algorithm. But I was trying to dig for the response. Like, what is this? Because I tried some. I always have weird ideas in my mind. So I was trying some things in that issue. There were some things I was trying out, and I was like, wanted to see what the response would be like. I mean, disregarding the overarching story or not, Zeb is actually one of my favorite writers, whether you like this run or not. Like, this is besides the point. He's awesome. And I was like trying to Google the review, but it kept popping up the same issue number from like just 3 years earlier. Like it was just, even for me trying to ego surf my efforts was like tricky, like trying to dig it out through the mess.
Yeah, it's hard if it's not like a number one comic book to actually get more than 3 or 4 reviews on a series nowadays.
But in the creator-owned space, I'll say this: like you won't have a 100-issue run normally unless you're like a saga or whatever. So reverting to number ones, I think it makes more sense in that smaller space because you only have miniseries after miniseries. But another hack that I think creators should know, and I was told this by the Image people when I was doing my book, and I didn't quite believe them. It didn't sound real, but they basically told me that if you do an Image book or whoever, Dark Horse or whatever, and you do like a 4-issue miniseries, it makes more sense in a fiscal way or success way to do a second different book. Because if you do a sequel to that first book, or even an unrelated new iteration of that character in a different miniseries, you don't get the bump in readership again. You'll still follow that downwards trajectory. So if you do, I don't know, Banana Man in Paris, and then you do Banana Man Goes to Hell or whatever, unrelated, you'll still get caught in that sales decline that happens with each issue. But if you do Apple Kid, unrelated to Banana Man, you'll now bump back up again. And you bump back up higher than you were when you did Banana Man. So if you're like, someone who's really into that creator on space, Rick Remender or Matt Fraction or whoever that is, there is a way to navigate that where you want to do new properties, because you can grow your audience by building different properties each time you go out. And I thought that was interesting. I haven't really made use of that strategy, but it is something that is true.
Common Sense says, Wes, aside from money, Batman and Spider-Man are the same. Both have big families, many variations. Love life got screwed, and they're the cash cow that got milk dry.
There's always more milk in that cow.
Especially in Batman. Never milked that one dry, but there's definitely some similarities.
There's overlap. The one thing I think that's interesting about Batman is he was created in the 30s, when it was like a class-based superhero. That was someone of the riches who was hurt by someone of the poors and declared war against the poors because they were dangerous against the riches. That was he's changed since then. But when he was invented, that was like class-based warfare. That was like
sounds like Bob Kane. That's exactly what that sounds like.
But Spider-Man was he was like a low middle class kid. There's no class in there at all. He wasn't he didn't vow to fight the horrors of the poor. It was a different. He took on responsibility, whereas Batman was like, I'm gonna punish these poor people who killed my rich parents. That was interesting, I think.
We've got HH, the guys from Sigma Comics. Shout out to all. Sigma never discriminates, regardless of politics, race, and gender. We accept all that want high quality comics, just like Thinking Critical. Support them and hit the like button and back issue 7 on Kickstarter.
Absolutely. Yeah, again, with comics, the pure strength of comics is it's such a small creator pool. It's individuals making individual art one at a time. And so it's a mistake to try to wrap everything up in this group versus this group. It's the true power is just the one person at a time.
Absolutely. And HH has all the true power. He was a MMA fighter turned comic book pro, and he's got his project right now on Kickstarter. Here comes Calico. Definitely support those guys. Really appreciate that. Callum says, never mind. I'm not doing that one. Kenneth says, in lieu of the new Mortal Kombat game coming out, I have a Mortal Kombat versus Marvel fight. Liu Kang versus Iron Fist. Who wins? It's not even close. It's Iron Fist.
I mean, I don't know. Liu Kang can turn into a full dragon. So.
Yeah, that's true.
What if he's ready to beat you? Other than that, he doesn't have any powers. He's not even as cool as Sub-Zero. Or
he's got his little fireball thing he can shoot out.
Finish him.
Iron Fist wouldn't fall for no fireball.
Iron Fist all day for sure.
It would be a very good fight. I'll put it that way.
I don't think it would be. I think he would destroy him.
I think Karnak would take that guy out. Karnak?
It was the devilish smile.
Guys, come on. I'm not partaking. I don't know nothing about Mortal Kombat.
Rev Sully, you're the biggest geek on here. Who wins, Liu Kang or Iron Fist?
I say Iron Fist just because I got in trouble online for saying what's up with Danny Rand? Why are you taking it away from him? Got blocked by Alyssa Wong. How am I supposed to buy your comic book, kid?
Oh my goodness.
Gosh.
Caleb says Spielberg did take a risk. Jaws, and look what happened. It's one of the greatest movies of all time. I don't understand that.
Yeah. No, I think he means that that's what made his
Oh,
career.
he took the risk, and there were issues, but it still ends up being one of the greatest.
The coolest thing about
Basically,
movies
it's the
is
start of the blockbuster, right?
the coolest thing about movies is like often the most successful movies have horrific origin stories, whether it's Apocalypse Now or Jaws or whatever, even Star Wars. Like these movies
Or any Kubrick film.
during the production, they fall apart. There's huge creative battles. The best book I read lately was The Making of Alien, the big hardcover book, and just going through that battle after battle after battle after battle, and then because I work in film as well, like you'll find yourself in a production where things are that crazy all the time, and you understand like, oh, they're supposed to be, because if it's too smooth, if production is too easy, it probably is not going to turn into a good movie. Like I can't think of a single movie where it's like it was so easy making that movie, everything fell into place and everyone loved it. Like there's something about like embedding the conflict of life into the creation of it that makes real art, you know?
Yeah, James Cameron almost killed all the actors on The Abyss with all those underwater scenes.
Well, not just that, his Aliens, huge fights with the crew, they fired their DP, like huge battle after battle after battle after battle. Like it's like, you know, like that stuff I think makes it good.
Yeah, there's a lot of good documentaries on Apocalypse Now. That thing was nuts. Federico de la Casa. I'm Gen X, and we read things that were progressive then. Now the people that were born yesterday think that the world was wrong, have the duty to change it.
That's what we thought then.
Yeah,
That's not really what I was ever taught, like growing up.
No, I was just going to comment on the first. I was going to comment on the first. Yeah, I was going to comment on the first half of that. This is a conversation that Joe Corral and I have had. There's been such a push from publishers and comics recently to push like, oh, look what we're doing now. Oh, the first this, the first that, and they're neglecting the history of their own comics, and I think that's a shame. You know, I agree. And you could even argue that, you know, when it was done previously, when we saw some of these things coming up in the 70s, 80s, early 90s, it was done again with more complexity than what we're seeing now. And now it's almost kind of like this. I should get a pat on the back because I'm doing, you know, I have a trans character or I have a gay character. Or I've done this. And yeah, sure, I'm all for diversity, but you've got to have more to your characters than just that attribute. And yeah, it's a weird time.
Well, you don't when it's your character. You can do whatever you want. Right.
Yeah.
I mean, if the only thing that makes them special is anything like that, then okay, that's the thing. But when you're trying to like market to, you know, if you're trying to make money, you might want to get something a little bit more substantial that everybody can buy into. And I just think, you know, that doesn't happen too often.
But I think the attitude of the young up and coming creator that has a duty to change the world is actually good. Like you should look at the world as something that is corrupt and ossified and wrong, and you should like strike to change it. But you should strike to change it through individual expression of just pure fucking art. Like you should just like take your sword and just, if that's the dragon you see, just slay that dragon with just pure, just passion, skill, energy, dedication, expertise. Like I think that is actually the fuel. Like you should have that in you, that burning desire to just like do a thing. I think the mistake is like saying, oh, I want a job. What are they looking for? You're looking for an apple. Here's an apple. Like that's actually what I think is deranging things, because the mechanism of getting hired and all that stuff has like, we're a corporation, we embrace these values. Do you embrace these values? Like that is the corruption, is the corporate down from the Apple whatever to down. But the real artists have a thing to say, and they just go and they just fucking say it. Like that's
what I've noticed when I was in the military, and it's definitely a change in generations, is when I was growing up, I was told you can do anything and you can change the world if you work really hard. And I do believe there are younger generations that believe it is their, I don't know, it is their destiny to change the world no matter what, whether you work hard or not. You are entitled to change the world no matter what job you do. And I think it's a good goal, and it's admirable to go out there and want to make a positive change in the world and really do everything that you can do to get there and help implement that change or positive change along the way. But just to expect that because I want the world to change, it has to change. I think that's a mentality that is really affecting younger people.
If you want the world
their ability to enjoy what they're doing.
If you want the world to change around you to suit you, well, of course you're going to be upset because that's not how anything works. You know, of course you're going to get really hurt feelings and feel bad about things and start to. But if you go change the world, like if you do yourself, do a thing that will change the world, like that's Howard Hughes, that's James Cameron, that's every innovator, that's Steve Jobs, that's every innovator that has done a thing was they just did it themselves. They changed the world themselves. And I think if you can take that anger, that frustration, whatever you're feeling, and put that into a sword and just go into battle yourself alone, outnumbered, overwhelmed, you have something to say. No one's going to stop you from saying it like that. I think that's actually the right approach to change the world. And if you get too angered that the world isn't changing around your needs, you need to start looking for your sword.
You're going to be disappointed and you're never going to be happy.
Not just that. You'll start being corruptive and you'll start trying to destroy people around you. You'll start flailing. Your own life will spiral. That's not how it works. Like find your sword and just like launch into it.
All right, Josh, I accidentally interrupt you.
You're good.
Do apologize.
You're fine. Oh, look, I see. Not all of his apologies are for his wife, guys.
Ooh.
He saves one a week for the gay guy.
Nice.
No, all I was gonna say is I'm all for slaying the dragon. My only comment would be is make sure that you have a basic understanding of the dragon you're about to slay.
Yeah,
I mean,
if you want to slay it, but I would also say, even if you don't understand it, like there is an urge to battle that I think is good. Like I think that urge is good, and if you follow that urge in a creative field, I don't think you can make a wrong move. Like I think I think you can it's just an exploration. The only wrong move would be no one notices and no one cares. But I think you got to embrace that inner warrior and just like do it.
Lade says, big thanks to Yule from Fantastic Comics. You sent me some awesome stuff. Of course, someone stole it from my door. However, go hit Yule up if you're looking for stuff. Oh, someone stole his package?
We're getting another one out to him.
It was
today.
Sully.
Hey,
Oh,
had to
Sully.
been. Blame the Irishman. Do it. He's from Boston.
Yeah.
Well, that sucks. Hopefully you get your
I
comic
know.
books back soon. That's just the lamest thing you can
It
do
ain't
is
gonna
take it
happen.
somewhere.
I'm just sending him another one.
Yeah. Keta says, I like Liu Kang for the win. Iron Fist could win too. Could go either way. And Sarah Connor at her best beats Ripley at her best. This is absolutely insane, Carrie. I don't even I love Kenneth, but he is off of his rocker. Ripley has access to mech armor, which Sarah Connor does not. And she would absolutely rip her apart with her metal exoskeleton.
Maybe.
There
Come on,
you go.
Carrie.
She'll win the
All
pull-up
right.
contest. Sarah wins the pull-ups contest. That's
Well, yeah, she's got better lats. I'm going to give her that.
Yeah,
But all
yeah.
she's got is a shotgun.
yeah.
Sarah
I
can
think
take her
really
from
what-
afar with that sniper rifle.
Really, what happens is Sarah Connor and Ripley join forces and just kind of like launch after the alien infused alien
Terminator.
1000. Like, wouldn't you want to see that? Like the metal alien shape shifting thing. Like, imagine if an alien xenomorphed out of the T-1000 or whatever. Like, why not?
Okay, so Kari, I'm gonna need you to find a writer and make that happen.
It's
Terminator
pretty
Aliens
Well, it has to
crossover.
be.
Let's do it.
Let's
It
do
has
it.
to be a Marvel, right?
Let's do it.
Yeah.
On one-on-one combat, Ripley beats her because she has access to better technology. Grateful Dog, good morning. Any plans for E-Ratic in the future?
Nothing on the table, but it's like, that's a character I like a lot. When I made E-Ratic, I really wanted a Spider-Man type archetype. And the funny thing about Spider-Man is whenever we make a new Spider-Man movie or TV show or whatever, he's always like teenage Peter Parker struggling with life in a teenage world, in a teenage space with teenage problems with adult responsibilities. And that's so cool because that's actually how it feels when you're a teenager. But that character hasn't existed at Marvel in so long, and every now and then he'll come back for a moment and is gone again. So that's actually I think it's the one character where the archetype of that character itself isn't in the company it exists in, at least in the comic book space. You know, like Batman's still Batman. His archetype is not him as a kid training. It's like him as an adult, like doling out vengeance. So when I was doing E-Ratic, I wanted to like embrace that space that doesn't exist in Marvel at the moment.
Very nice. Caleb says, back to Fables. There's a Wolf Among Us 2 trailer. You might like it if he beats up the Tin Man and the Scarecrow from Wizard of Oz. Josh, are you interested?
Because of the Wizard of Oz. I mean, hey there, Dorothy.
Dorothy over the rainbow. Sure. I'm open to anything. That's my thing. Is like put it in front of me. I'm gonna give it a chance. So yeah,
I might check it out. I'm telling you, Wizard of Oz is one of my favorite things. So I will check it out. I have
Bill Willingham will not be happy because this is one of the reasons he was really mad.
Well, now it's in the public domain. Now it's all out there. So
well, I guess you're correct on that one. That's probably a good way to go about it. Kenneth says, Mr. Kaare, I too am a Marvel guy, but Batman is cool. If I ever see you, I'll buy you a drink. I just won't drink alcohol.
Perfect. That sounds good. Sounds good.
Are you going to have a Shirley Temple? What are you going to have? Right? Do you drink? Are you a beer guy?
Who, me?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, well, I'll drink whatever. Anything. Yeah.
There you go, kid. If you just order him anything with alcohol in it, and he'll
whatever, I'll do it. I'm up for the challenge.
He's in.
But I haven't had a beer in like 2 years now. It's absolutely insane. I got too many little kids now. Federico De La Casa. I just read on Facebook in the Chris Claremont fan chat a post about Betsy Braddock, and under that it says, "I miss the old Betsy." Claremont himself replied, "Me too."
Well, what do you? I mean, that's good though, right? Like that means if you had the same Betsy as back then, wouldn't you want a change? Like it's good to have. Like I miss being teenage Kaare. Mm-hmm. Like that was a fun time in my life, but it was a time that's full of crazy emotions and danger. But it's like I miss it because if I was still that guy, if I was still teenage Kaare, like in my 40s, like oh my god, I would be insane. Like you should miss those pockets and those moments in life.
Yeah, but Betsy's Captain Britain now. She replaced her brother. You know what I mean?
Well, she's not Psylocke anymore. They've been split.
Quanon's like Psylocke again, right?
Yeah, but all I'm saying is like is it's good that things change, and it's good even when they change in the bad way because they can always change it back again. Like comics, the cool thing about comics is your version of Spider-Man can go away, get deranged, you can fall out of love with it, but then it can come back again. Like these characters have been around for so long, each wave of it re-explodes and reinvigorates, and it's almost good when a character you don't like a character's going. It's good because it gives it space for some other creator to go in and bring it back. And what a magical feeling it would be if a new version of that character was brought back in a way that felt important to you. Like I think that's healthy. I think it's good.
Yeah, a lot of times the things that you liked as a kid, they aren't quite as good as you remember. You know what I mean? I went back and watched Thundercats again. Like, and it's still good, but it's not nearly as badass as I remembered as a kid. Like, it's only okay now. Although Transformers and G.I. Joe are still amazing somehow. Common Sense says, that's the beauty of it. It was not about identity politics. You just rope pay a kid from Kunlun trying to adjust to a new life in New York, having challenges with school and being Danny's student.
Yeah, I think when you do things honestly, people can read into it, whatever is going on around the world in a healthy way, because you're just exploring things. I don't know. Like, I think, so when Mark was on the show a few weeks ago, and he had this idea of like reinvigorating comic books by bringing these ballers back to comics. Like, I'm interested in that idea. I think it's a valuable idea because I think it's two things. It's like, I missed that version of the comics that I used to love, but also it's now, because they went away, it provides a great opportunity for like a recharge, a reinvestment, a new wave, a new thing. And I feel like that thing's coming. Like, I feel like that next thing that's going to happen in comic books we've plateaued on a thing. We plateaued on the writer driven universes. That's plateaued. It's stagnated. It's gone away. Just like it used to be. Like we plateaued on the artist
deconstruction has
driving
been done enough.
driving comics. So whatever's going to happen next, I think is going to happen soon. Like I think it's like I feel that energy building, and if is the craziest idea bringing back the most talented artists in the world back into drawing interior pages, the craziest idea in the world. Like, let's fucking go, man. Let's go. Like, I want to draw a monthly book. When I'm done Spider-Man Reign, I think I want to do a monthly next. Like, I'm feeling that calling, because sometimes there's a calling to do a special project. Like, I want to do a special thing. I want to do my own special thing. But I feel a real calling right now to like go back and draw interiors. Like I want to do a 12-issue run on Spider-Man or whatever that is. I want to do like an interior, like right now I do so many covers. I'm doing all these covers. I'm doing 90 oh my God, I'm doing these 90 style covers right now. They're so fulfilling to me creatively. Like it's like amazing to, when I do them, it's like, oh my God, I'm like eating cake and ice cream on a water ski circling the universe. Like it's amazing. But I want to like take that energy and I want to put it inside a monthly book. Like I'm getting, I feel a siren call to do a monthly book now in a way that I haven't felt in a long time. And I think after Rain, that's what I want to do next. A monthly book somewhere and just like monthly pages, monthly storytelling, 12-issue run. Like, let's go. Like, that's what I want to do next.
Oh man, that would be amazing. We could get J. Scott Campbell back in there, maybe have him on X-Men or something like that. We can get all the really great cover artists that haven't been really doing interiors. People would absolutely lose their minds.
Yeah, let's go. Let's go.
Absolutely. Kenneth, let's go. Mortal Kombat Scorpion versus Classic Deathstroke. Deathstroke would destroy him.
Deathstroke.
Is no one a Johnny Cage fan? Like, what happened to my Johnny Cage fan?
I know, nobody's putting Johnny Cage in here.
Johnny Cage was the weakest character besides Liu Kang, wasn't he?
He was amazing. His Jean-Claude
Didn't he sign his
Did he sign an
autograph
autograph
or something?
when he beat you up?
Yeah.
When I played, I was like
He's
Scorpion
my
because he could
biggest
drag
fan.
people over. But
That's the only thing I know of Johnny Cage all the way.
Caleb says, the Wolf Among Us sequel trailer is funny. I do recommend you watch it. I'll probably check it out. I was perusing around those things, getting ready for that video. Kenneth says, where am I at? While Alyssa Wong's Iron Fist is about the identity politics, they messed up Wu Oh-Shi's history by ignoring her husband in Li Kung, a man who broke tradition and trained all the women of Kunlun to overthrow Nuon. This dude loves Iron Fist.
Yes.
Yes.
I'm gonna believe everything they said.
Yes.
Okay.
Do you guys
Like,
remember Danny had a sister for a little bit there back in the day? Danny,
what are the chances you return it to do interiors for Iron Fist? Is that where it's at?
Somewhere. I'm gonna end up somewhere. I mean, Iron Fist.
Whatever
is cool.
you do, you'd be writing it also probably.
Not always. I mean, I like working with writers. Like I like like some of my favorite stuff has been working with Mark Millar or Zeb.
I loved your work with Warren Ellis.
Warren Ellis. Yeah, those are my top
great
three
stuff, man.
favorite writers to work with are those three guys. Like legitimately. So I like when you're a penciler and you draw someone else's script, the fun of it is it's like directing. So in directing, I'm given a script. And then the task of the director is to go in, analyze the script, like mine out the meaning behind each line, each scene, each intention. In directing, you have to then communicate that to actors, communicate it to production designers, communicate it to a lot of the musicians. In comics, you get to keep that all yourself. So I take that script, I analyze the crap out of it, each line, each intention. And then here's the true magic. The true magic of drawing someone else's script is not to draw their script. And what I mean by that is if you really want to fly at the top of your game, you're drawing what the writer is trying to tell you, is trying to say, but they themselves don't know that's what they want. And I can tell when I really hit that peak and I'm really like on it, I am drawing what their intention is, not what their written words are. And it's just like acting. So acting, the worst thing when you work with an actor is they just repeat the lines on a scene. I worked with Anne Heche and she was fucking amazing. this actor, in real life, her personal life was very messy, very erratic, but in front of a camera, she could take any line, and just balls out, invest in it in a truthful, surprising way. And the key part there is surprising. If an actor is not surprising you, even though you know what they're going to say, you tell them where to stand in a room, you know what the other actor is going to say. Not that everything's designed, from the props to the wardrobe to the lighting, everything's designed, but their job is to surprise you, and you're directing them. And if they're not surprising you, they're only working at a surface level or medium level. So when I'm drawing a script, I should be surprising the writer in a way that's more true than the thing they wanted me to, or the thing that they wrote down on the page is. But it should fulfill what they want. And that process is so cool. So like, I love writing my own stories. It's amazing. But I also equally enjoy working with a talented writer, because that process is so fun.
You just had me reliving a scene from Wayne's World with Charlton Heston ready to take over. Like, we got to do better than this. Kenneth says, Josh, all the class you brought to the channel went away with that Nightwing is better than Spider-Man comment. You and Wes are Dick Grayson simps. Nightwing is Batman's sloppy seconds.
Wow.
I'm going to reject your thoughts and words against Dick Grayson and say nice day to you,
Yes.
Kenneth.
Namaste.
Namaste. I love you, Kenneth.
I just saw a quick comment here in the chat saying that if the artist is taking over the director's role for the book, if the writer is the director, then they will provide the artist with exactly what they want. And here's I think the fallacy of modern comics. The writer is never intended to be the director of comics. And I say this as someone who writes, draws comics, and directs film and television. The director's job in film and television is not to come up with a story, and is not to like, hey, here's what we're going to do. The director's job is to come with the vision, like the tone, the plan, the inspiration. So I take your script that I didn't write, and sometimes I'm just given, whether maybe it's a TV series I've been running for a year already, maybe it's a movie, whatever it is. My job as a director is to take that and own it, and then communicate my whole essence through all the different parts. And if a writer is trying to do that in comic books, they're failing and don't understand what they're doing. And I think that's what happens. If a writer is trying to control the tone and the atmosphere and the intention and the specificities, the reason Stan Lee is one of the greatest writers in the comic book industry is because he did the opposite of that. Is because what he did was he inspired the artists. He inspired Jack Kirby to do his fucking thing that only he could do. And if you had Stan Lee giving him detailed scripts, Stan do this, Stan do that, Stan not this, Stan redraw this, Jack Kirby, we wouldn't have Jack doing his thing. Like, it's the opposite. So if you're a writer and you think your job is to be the director, you're not doing your best work. You actually want to tell your story to someone else who will then tell that story again. You are igniting the process. You're not controlling the process. I was at this one panel, and we were talking about Photoshop and comics, and I was talking about all the different things I do in Photoshop. Sometimes I use an oil painting technique, sometimes I use a watercolor technique, sometimes use a photographic technique, whatever I'm doing. I love like trying out things and experimenting. And it was like, people were receptive. It's really fun, good, exciting panel. And then there's a very well-known writer who at the end of the panel was like, "Oh my God, that was so great. You should be my new Photoshop guy." And I was like, this is like one of the top writers in comics. And I was like, "Oh, I'm going to be your Photoshop guy." I guess we'll never work together, because you don't understand what you just said there. You don't understand that it's not, I will never be your Photoshop guy. Like, you tell me a story and then I tell that story. And what's on the page will live or fail on my telling your story again through my eyes. And if I'm only telling your story, then guess what? It's going to fucking suck. It's going to fail. And no one will think it's my fault. They'll all say, the art was pretty good. The story didn't really make sense. I didn't really enjoy it. That's because if you try to control me, that's what's going to happen. Just like when you work with an actor.
It looked like Kaare Andrews, but it didn't feel like Kaare Andrews art.
Right. It must be the writing. The writing must have learned that straight. But it's like, I should be surprising you. If you're the writer, I should be surprising you. I should be doing your thing in a way more true than you thought it could happen. And if you can fuel me, and if I can fuel the pages, oh my God, that's the true collaboration in comics.
All right. Kenneth wants to know Kane from John Wick 4 versus Daredevil. My computer's not working now.
It's like Kane.
Because
Sure.
you're
I
stalled
think he just
out.
froze up again too.
All right.
Yeah,
Let's
like-
pass. Oh, here we
Am
go.
I back? There it is.
Yeah,
My
You're
bad.
you're
back.
here.
Oh my goodness. I haven't seen John Wick 4 yet. So I'll take
Pretty
Daredevil.
good.
All right, Josh, you're the movie guy. Who wins?
Yeah,
Kane
I
or
mean,
Daredevil?
Kane's Donnie Yen's character, who's also blind and a good fighter. But look, my heart is with Ellie. Clearly, I'm a huge Daredevil fan, and I got more Daredevil down here. I've got to go Daredevil. Sorry.
Well, there you go. Calvin says the difference between Pei and Lin Lee, she at least beats Mother Shu Lao. It earns her mark Swordmaster. Just ask Xiao Lao. Give her the power. Even the dragon said, Lin, I pick up you for a reason. Never say why.
The weird thing with Pei is like I created that character as I wanted her to slay the dragon, but not kill the dragon. So I wanted to give her a dragon. Like that was my weird idea, was to give her like give her a Kitty Pryde Lockheed character. I called Gork because I thought it'd be really fun. Like I love the idea of dragons that are embedded in the Iron Fist mythology, but it's very hard to use them because the dragon in the real world is like the sides of a building and you have to kill them really to become Iron Fist. So I always thought what if I could give a dragon to the character? Like that'd be really a little girl and a dragon. Like that would be awesome. So that's what I tried to do with Pei that hadn't quite been done yet. But you always look for those threads of things that haven't been done yet in the mythology of the character, and you try to like do a new thing.
Very nice. Caleb says, I know you can't read it, but that's how I see it, man. Caleb, you're always keeping me on my toes. You knew I couldn't say that stuff out loud. My goodness. Kenneth, James Cameron loves battles on his sets. I guess that's how he makes such great movies. Terminator 2 fan.
You should read about Blade Runner and about Ridley Scott. I mean, that was an amazing story behind the scenes.
Yeah, man. Again, and Blade Runner, when it came out, economic failure, horrible. Same with The Thing. These are my favorite movies of all time. But when they came out, people didn't like them. The general audience did not like Blade Runner. The general audience did not like The Thing. But
I think
these
The
are
Thing is
movies-
better than the Blade Runner, though. That's me.
Oh, they're both amazing. Now,
Yeah, but you gotta
and now
pick.
we value them so highly as fans of the genre, but you never know, right? As long as the intention is pure, like Ridley Scott was not trying to make some kind of political statement with Blade Runner. He was just embedded in that world. And the thing has all those things embedded in it. The paranoia, the social issues, the who's who, the everyone's against each other. We don't know the true identity of anyone. Like that's in there, but it's in there in a complicated, nuanced way. And that's not the point of it. The point of the thing is like a dystopic, like last man standing type of story. Yeah, those movies are amazing. That's why you can't, it's a mistake to try to just get success as your goal. You want to make art.
Aurora Bora Snake, Mr. Andrews, what's your dream book for DC to do?
Well, I've always I think any book in DC would be fun. That's a playground I have not really played in. I've done some covers for DC, but never really a story. So I've always had in mind that I would do a Batman book at some point, and I think that will happen. I don't know when. That's kind of like, every kind of artist needs to do a Batman run.
I suggest Nightwing is probably.
He wants to draw a cape, man. I understand.
But I think DC is like that playing field is so new to me. It would be fun to do whatever over there at some point.
It's definitely got to be Batman. Common Sense, how was it working with Afu-chan in Immortal Iron Fist?
Yeah, great. He was a bit of a surprise to me. Like Afu kind of was suggested by my editor, and I thought it was very interesting, and it was really fun. Like his art style is so alive. So it's great. It was really good. I really enjoyed that book.
Candace says Ripley may have mech armor, but Sarah has superior training. Ripley needed help in those alien movies, but Connor is self-reliant. But both of them teaming up sounds great. Kari, please make it happen.
That'd be pretty fun, I think. Sarah Connor Ripley team up. I mean, these are the two of the most powerful female characters in the history of cinema. Like that would be pretty dope, I think.
Yeah, they did like the Ash from the Evil Dead fighting aliens or something. I think they could put that together. It'd be fun.
And then I think a Xenomorph Terminator would be pretty fun too. So if Dark
that-
Horse still had those
Marlin
properties,
Toys would be very happy to sell that.
yeah, and if Dark Horse still had those properties, I think that would have happened already.
What about Goro versus Deathstroke? Well, now we're talking about an even fight here. I don't know, Josh. I think Goro rips Deathstroke's arms off.
I would say Goro could do it with 3 hands tied behind his back. You could make that joke. I still think Deathstroke wins, though.
I do too. I think he's a better fighter. He's a better tactician to come to the table. Goro's brute force, but Deathstroke can hold his own.
Deathstroke can also go from a distance, so I think that he can
True.
end up doing that.
He just snipers him from
Just shoots him with a
300
sniper
yards
rifle
away.
from.
What? That's
Fight over.
Adam Gray wants to know, Kari, do you have any ideas of what you do with the Hulk project?
Well, listen, back in the day, I almost did my own Hulk story. I had this weird idea. I had this weird image in my mind of like Bruce Wayne, Bruce Banner, just awakening in. This is after my I did my Hulk covers. Bruce Banner awakening in the ruins of this plane crash, and realizing that he had hulked out in mid-flight and destroyed everyone on board. And I actually pitched this just as a thing. I kind of got busy; it never happened. But then what happened? Here's what happens: you need to be very careful when you talk about the ideas, because once they come out of your mouth, like this T1000 Xenogenesis idea, now it'll happen.
Yeah.
Just wait. In 5 years, it'll happen. They're now out in the ether, and that same image turned into a Hulk story. I can't remember where it was. And I think they did a small plane. Like it changed, but it totally ruined my pitch. And so I had this big book about if you're responsible for all this death, but you did it. His realization later would be it wasn't really his fault. He hulked out because of some attack on the plane or whatever. Absolved him of his guilt, but he still was guilty because he still did whatever. It was a moral dilemma. But once you say these things out loud, I had this Wolverine story. Well, this Wolverine story that I pitched, Marvel bought. I laid out the entire 4-issue story. I wrote the script. I was up to layouts, and then a film project happened out of nowhere, because that's how film projects happen. They just happen like, boom, we can go. And it's like, oh my, sorry, can we put a pause on this while I do this thing and I'll come back? And then by the time I came back, my story had already happened from someone else. So my story at the time, my pitch at the time was like, it was a bit different, but it was like, it's so crazy. I wanted Wolverine, because he's almost immortal. He's hard to kill. I thought, if there's a character that you could kill and get sent to hell and he could come back, like that would be amazing. And if he could rescue the life of someone who was actually dead, someone who shouldn't have died, but if somehow he could, like, through this metaphysical space of like life and death, and he's lived for 100 years or whatever, come back and bring back an innocent life, someone who shouldn't have died. And like, I thought, oh, that'd be amazing. And then I went off and did the project, and then Wolverine in Hell showed up and like totally ruined that whole, like all my major plot points now showed up in someone else's project and someone else's script in some other way. And I'm not saying anyone stole it, like, but just once you say these things aloud, they're there, they're in the air. You never know. Even they could be someone somewhere else. Like there's this idea of the 100 monkey thing, right? Where 100 monkeys at a typewriter, I'll start typing the same thing or whatever. Like you say something here, someone else across the world. Like I do think there's this weird ether of creativity that we share. And so those ideas, the precious ideas, you can't say them, you can't share them until the last second. And at the last second, only then can you release them into the world.
Chuck Skills, who has the best name, says, I love Kari's art and X-Men Exogenesis. Cheers.
Yeah, well, I try every time I do a project, I try to do it in a new way. Like I'm just constantly obsessed with a new version of myself. I don't think that's the best version of myself, X-Men Xenogenesis. That was one of the projects that I consider a bit of I got tripped up a little bit artistically. I don't feel like I feel like I have better drawn, more cohesively drawn, like that whole book. Like I was kind of tripping over my own feet. I was trying to do new things and they weren't quite hitting, but I pushed my way through. But yeah, I really enjoyed that book. I really enjoyed working with Warren. It was like I loved so much about that story, but I felt like I let that book down a little bit. Like the way I was doing it, I kind of like the new things I was trying weren't quite hitting there. Everything felt a bit off. Like the key wasn't quite going in the lock.
And that's why when you release the art out into the public, it's not really yours anymore. It's everyone else's to interpret and appreciate or not appreciate how they want. So you're disappointed where Chuck Skill says it's amazing.
Oh yeah, no, but I also love that. I love that idea. I love the idea that George Lucas's Star Wars that he initially brought out in the world is better than when he had all the money and all. Like when he redid his own movie, it got worse. Like I like that idea so much.
Kenneth says, "You guys count out Scorpion way too easily. Scorpion is not a normal ninja. He's a Hellspawn warrior whose power is on par with Destro." Yeah, but he doesn't get to use 100% of his brain like Deathstroke. You're thinking of modern old school Deathstroke from George Perez and Marv Wolfman would absolutely wipe the floor with Scorpion. Wouldn't even be close. Kenneth, you crazy. Calvin says, "Can you talk about Amazing Fantasy? What is it? What is that world? Is it Weird World or is it different? If so, that's great. I like Weird World." And you said Danny's sister to do. Do you guys mean Sparrow, Liu Kang's daughter?
No. Danny had a sister who turned out to be a plant person back in the 70s, early 80s. I think it was that John Burns stuff? I can't remember, but it was a weird storyline. For a while, he had a sister, a long blonde-haired sister, who was in Kunlun. And I think she turned out to be a plant person or something like that. I kind of, it didn't really mean a lot to me when I was reading it. So kind of floated away, but it was a bit of a weird bump. But the cool thing about continuity with these characters is you do a thing, you try it. And even if it messes up the overall continuity, the unimportant versions float away. And all that really remains in the public consciousness is what's important. Like whether Spider-Man had a clone or didn't have a clone, or Danny had a sister or didn't have a sister, or whatever. Superman has, I don't know, purple kryptonite or gold, whatever. The weird things float away. And that's why even if you don't enjoy what's going on with your favorite character today, it'll float away. And in 5 years from now, maybe something really cool will happen to the character you love with people you love doing it. And that's what you'll remember. The other stuff will just evaporate. With Amazing Fantasy, I was inspired, and I don't think I communicated this quite well because I didn't need it to be surface, but the idea behind Amazing Fantasy was that world is fueled by a manifestation of the guilts or the sins or the wrongs or your mistakes. So that world itself was created as a bit of an afterlife construct. So the Uncle Ben that meets Peter in that world isn't actually Uncle Ben. It's like a construct of his guilt that he has towards Uncle Ben.
Very good. That was a good series. Keda says, "Kari, for you, I'll give your boy a shot. Johnny Cage versus Richard Dragon."
Who's Richard Dragon?
The greatest martial artist in DC Comics, right?
The DC version of
yeah, pretty much. I go Johnny Cage.
Richard Dragon would destroy
Johnny Cage. We got to give at least one to the Mortal Kombat deal.
But Johnny Cage is not. I mean, put Liu Kang in there, sure, maybe Liu Kang, but Johnny Cage is. Look, I was the one that said Liu Kang when Liu Kang was fighting this, but Johnny Cage against Richard Dragon.
Johnny Cage. I'll go Glass Joe. Glass Joe in there.
I feel like we can name 10 martial artists from DC that are going to mop the floor with Johnny Cage. Look, Johnny Cage is a fun character. He's not the best fighter. I often chose Johnny Cage to play with.
Richard Dragon can beat up Batman.
Yeah, no, I know that. Like he's up there, like Dragon Lady Shiva.
Johnny Cage has a bazooka. I just threw it in there.
I'm still trying to remember who Richard Dragon is. Does he have a name, like a superhero name?
It's just Richard.
That's his name.
Dragon.
Yeah.
I don't remember.
Yeah, they haven't used him a lot.
Yeah, especially lately.
He was kind of in that Lazarus tournament thing they were doing the Robin series, but he didn't even show up there. It was
Chuck Dixon wrote a good series, I think, on Richard Dragon with Scott McDaniel.
This is kind of off topic. I do want to just bring it up because someone asked, Kari, what he would like to do for DC. and my mind just started going. I personally would love to see you take on like an Aquaman epic. I think that could be a lot of, but I'm being serious. I think you could do a lot of really. I think you're great at world building, and I would love to see you kind of take that over. But I think you're really good at handling ensembles, and I think Aquaman needs some love, and they need some good talent behind him right now.
That would be a challenge. My buddy Josh Middleton did a whole run in Aquaman covers, and here's a weird thing about covers. Like covers have become so crazy lately, right? So many variants, all these number ones, so many like 1 out of 50, 1 out of 100. Like, here's the foil. I do a whole lot of these covers myself, but I think I've said this before in other podcasts. But my theory on why the covers have taken off is because the work inside is a bit depressed, and people are drawn towards the talent that makes these comics. And if the talent is showing up on the covers, well, that's what will become valuable. And people will seek out the covers, and the inside, maybe it's a nice filler, but they're going to hunt the talent. So if you can get these cover artists inside, that's amazing. And the thing with Josh, when he was doing those Aquaman books, like he felt, I don't know, maybe I'm speaking out of turn, but part of his process was he felt he was the holder of the Aquaman, the true archetype of Aquaman. And so no matter what was going on inside those books, he felt he was the one who was going to keep Aquaman as Aquaman on the covers in a way that honored his version, his idea. And when I do covers, I'm the same way. I really take that to heart, where in a weird way, sometimes the cover artist is carrying the load. So sometimes the cover artist is like, when I'm doing these 90s style covers these days, I feel like in a weird way, I'm like holding up this weird, my version of these characters, no matter what's going on inside the books. Maybe it's amazing, maybe it's not, but I feel like responsible to fans or to my interests. And when I say fans, I mean, when I was the biggest fan in the world myself, I feel like I'm going to carry the load for a while. Like the book may drift this way or that way, but I'm going to give you the classic or archetypal version of Spider-Man at least on the cover. And I feel like a lot of cover artists probably feel the same way. And I think that's probably what's giving these covers the value, is because the fans sense that the real integrity at the moment, for now, can sometimes be found in the covers themselves, because these are our best artists attacking these characters. And whenever you do a cover, the trick of doing a great cover, you tackle it either as an archetype or as a contrast to the archetype. One or the other. The middle is uninteresting. So you're going to find the value of the characters on the cover, even if it's not on the inside.
Absolutely. Kenneth says, Wes and Josh, it's all friendly jabs on your boy Nightwing. He's a great character. Chuck Dixon's run on Nightwing is one of the best runs in the late 90s and early double aughts. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Kenneth says, Kaare, you mentioned Wolverine. Are any of you excited for Wolverine versus Predator?
No. Sorry.
No.
Yeah.
Oh, again, I'm gonna give it. Who's writing that?
Ben Percy.
I'll give it a shot. Like Ben Percy,
I'm gonna give it a shot.
Yeah, Ben's hit or miss with me. There's times that I absolutely love him. There's times where it just doesn't land for me. But yeah, I feel like he's one of those people. When he lands it, it's usually pretty entertaining.
Is it good, Yule?
I haven't read it yet, but it's got
Are people excited?
artists in it. I'm really excited for it, actually. We got Ken Lashley, Greg Land, and Andrea DeVito on art. That should be pretty good.
Artists.
For the insides?
There's like 3 different, I guess, stages of Wolverine's life, where I guess he's probably fighting predators. I don't know. But yeah, it's got a present day young Wolverine and then Team X. So there you go.
Ken Lashley for the win.
Yeah, Ken Lashley. Yeah,
he's great.
He's really increased in art style. I think since his 90s Rising Stars days, he's gotten a lot better. Like he's increased in goodness.
Absolutely. Cal wants to know, what are your thoughts on Aquaman 2 trailer? This is the only thought I'll put out there. Kaare, obviously you're a director. You would have a better insight. But it looks like the effects aren't quite done yet. That's kind of the thing. that just-
Often the
I've
trailers
seen.
are released with unfinished effects. So and then they'll keep update. You'll sometimes see this. They'll update the trailers and the effects will be like, oh, they look better than before. Or sometimes you'll spot green screens themselves actually in a trailer. Like they just didn't need enough time to swap out the background. You often see that. So I don't know. I think like I know James Gunn a little bit, and I think he's in a tough spot where he's got to ride out these movies that were greenlit without him, and try to make them as successful as possible so we get to the movies that are made with him. I don't know. And James Wan is a great director, right? He's doing the second one as well. He's a good director. Like he's really good.
What are your thoughts, Josh? Obviously, you're the movie guy.
I mean, look, it looks like it could be fun. You know, I think the first Aquaman was a masterpiece? No. Did I have a good time watching it? Yeah, you know, and I think we need to keep in mind what we go see these movies for. So many of these DC movies, so many of these comic book movies we're seeing these days are getting so meddled with, though, that we need to be careful. Let's keep in mind, Aquaman should have released December of this past year, and it got pushed back to make changes and make changes and make changes.
I think it was originally August of 2022.
Yeah. So we'll see. It needs to come out at this point.
Yeah, we'll see what happens there. Cal says Ivan Rice is the best Aquaman artist. Also, Godzilla -1 showed a new trailer, so did Legacy of Monsters on Apple TV. Looking forward to that. Ivan Rice is a brilliant artist on anything that he illustrates.
Yeah, Aquaman's one of those characters that he's been very lucky to have a lot of good artists behind him, and I would like to see that trend continue.
All right. Kenneth says, Mr. Kaare, Richard Dragon is a top 5 martial artist in DC. No, he's number 1 actually.
Better than Cassandra Cain?
Yes.
Better?
JC RD wins. Have a great day, guys. Kaare, thank you very much for your time sharing your experience and knowledge. Take care. And with that, I guess we're at the end. There is one more super chat that I'm going to get to here in a little bit, but it feels so much like a pitch for a comic book that I don't want to actually give it to Kaare because I don't think we're supposed to do that. You're not supposed to get unsolicited pitches, correct?
I mean, I don't care.
All right,
people say that stuff so they don't get sued. But I mean,
you said what happened.
This isn't going to be in your story. Ryan Wilson, my pitch for Spider-Man Raid 2, Peters in the past donated to the sperm bank for money. A year later, he got kids who wanted to kill Spider-Man because his poisonous spider sperm killed their moms. Do it.
Do it.
That may already be in the book.
That's already in the book. Oh no.
It may already be in the book.
He's gonna ask for 50 cents.
It got leaked. My script may have gotten leaked somewhere.
Holy cow. Oh my gosh.
But you say it's not specifically radioactive spider sperm that killed MJ. She just died from radiation poisoning, which could have been just her hugging Peter Parker and just being around someone that was radioactive.
Like he's got radioactive blood, like that. That's every fluid in his body: tears, sweat, blood.
But everyone concentrated on
up.
the man fluid when they saw it because they were like, well, they're married and they were having sex, I guess.
Yeah, I mean, I can't control people's
interpretation.
You will put into that story what you want to be there, and it's been fun. Like I don't care. I think it's been fun. It's made the book something to be talked about. So after all this time, I think the biggest thing that really poked people was seeing this archetypally young character as an old man, and a character who is eternally young as someone broken and alone. Like I think that really actually poked people. Like that was the real thing that was like people were like, oh, like kind of like made them shudder, because it's not like Batman. Batman, he's already old. He was old when he was a kid, and but Spider-Man, people think of him as this teenager. To see him broken and alone, I think that's really what kind of like vibrated.
Now that we're at the end, Kaare, I don't know if you know this. Normally, we do comic book recommendations. Everyone talks about the comic books that they recommend people read this week. Was there anything that came out new, or maybe a release or trade that's out that you think people should go check out that is high quality, sir?
The I Am Stan graphic novel is very interesting. I mean, it's very, I think it's very. I'm not done it yet. I burned through most of it in one sitting, and I have the last little bit to finish up, but. Like these icons in our industry, whether it's Frank Frazetta or Stan Lee or whoever, these are complicated people who had complicated lives, and we push them up on this pinnacle, and then we take turns praising them and taking shots at them, and it's like these are these are men who lived lives and made mistakes and did amazing things too. So it's like, I think it's interesting. I don't know. I would like to know. I wish that book had footnotes so I could go, because it feels oftentimes like transcribing parts of interviews. So yeah. I wouldn't mind like a new version, annotated and footnoted, and something I could kind of like dig into. Like, here's the coolest thing about Stan Lee. YouTube this now, Google this now. You can find this Stan Lee who's like in his 40s. He's bald, he's clean shaven, he's in his suit, and he's very like giving answers like he works at Xerox or something like that. And then just a few years later, he's got the Burt Reynolds mustache, the toupee, the sunglasses, the leather jacket, shirt, and he's like changed his whole persona. And like, what an evolution! Like, what an amazing transformation to become like this from the corporate writer to like the pitch man, sex symbol. Like, I like that stuff. Frank Frazetta, his family has built a museum to honor himself. Like, they've created this thing. Like, part of the task of his family was to build the legacy of this father. Like, I think that's so interesting, you know, like that's kind of what we've done with Stan Lee. Like, we've taken these people and built up these whole illusions or personas or constructions. Like, I think I think it's just fascinating in terms of just people.
Very nice. Mr. Yule Carter, you are the proprietor of Fantastic Comics. Are you recommending people read comics this week?
Actually, I haven't read too many comics this week. I was getting ready for my interview with Tom Scioli's art partner or writing. He was the artist on Joe Casey's Godland. And so I was reading Butcher Baker, Righteous Maker. I'm kind of doing it doc style. And then I rebagged them in some nice Mylar right here. That's a cool cover.
Very nice.
And so I could have a conversation with him about that. And Junior Baker, The Righteous Maker, I actually finished this week. And that was an interesting book. But since we have Kaare Andrews on, I pulled this one out. And you should check out, if you have Spider-Man's Tangled Webs number 10, where you do the writing and the art. If I remember correctly, he's watching Spider-Man through the window of his apartment. Is that the story? It's like two kids who, I mean, this is kind of an autobiographical. Two little kids who like are kind of like, you know, living their lives, watching and enjoying talking about these characters, and then they smash through in the real world, interrupt their lives with themselves. So that was like my first, when I first broke into Marvel, I broke in as a penciler, and I really wanted to write as soon as possible, because I knew from comics, if you work too long as a penciler before you write, you're always going to be the penciler that wants to write. And immediately I knew my task when I broke in was, as soon as possible, write. Because if I could just define myself off the go as a writer artist, I won't have to have that battle or that conversation ever again. And so when I first broke in, immediately I was telling Axel at the time, I want to write something. And he's like, well, it's really hard. A lot of artists want to write, but it's harder than they think. And maybe at some point we can talk about it. And, you know, there's this anthology about Spider-Man. If you ever have an idea, I guess we could talk about it at some point. So I just like went and I just wrote, laid out, lettered my layouts, and handed him my stories. Like, what about this? And then he was like, oh, this is pretty good. Okay. But like, that's kind of what you have to do in comics, is like, as soon as possible, just establish yourself as what you want to do, what you want to be. So if you like, don't be the artist that is waiting for that opportunity to get good enough to one day be allowed to write. Like in today's world, you could just like write your own thing and put it on crowdfunding, or put it on even the internet if you're worried about trying to fulfill or whatever. Like, you just need to just launch into the thing you want to do now.
Very nice. Common Sense, thank you very much for supporting the channel. I recommend Inferno Girl Red Book number 2, currently on Kickstarter for the next 5 days. Kenneth Dowling, if you were still here, who would win, Inferno Girl Red or Common America? I already asked for Aficionados. Well, thank you very much. And if you are a fan of Inferno Girl Red Book, definitely get on Kickstarter. You only have 5 days left. Eric O'Sullivan, the Sultan of Soup. Are you recommending Alligator Loki?
Well, it's surprising. I liked it. It was the best thing I think Alyssa Wong's written. Because it follows like it's got the
Her
feel
first
of a
issue of Deadpool is actually pretty good.
oh man, but that Venom annual this week, that was trash, man. What's in the bag though? I got new funny books from the local comic book shop. I'm gonna say that the one that surprised me the most was Werewolf by Night, #1. This was excellent. I love the art in it. The story's really good. I love the coloring in this book. This was tops. Hulk #4, good stuff. Really good stuff. I got Green Lantern #3. It's pretty mid, but it's okay. You know, I like Jeremy Adams. I want to support him, but the interior art's just like got that digital flavor that I hate that stuff. But it's okay. I'll stick with it because I want to buy things from my local comic book shop. And I got Creep Show #1 from Skybound. I got a little buyer's remorse because I don't want to give Becky Cloonan my money because she, blocked me on Twitter for it being adjacent to evil. But it's got Garth Ennis, it's got Phil Hester, and it's okay. You know what I mean? I'm glad I took a chance. Yeah. And those are my picks of the week. Thank you.
Well, thank you very much. Josh, did you read comic books this week, or are you too busy with work to recommend?
No, I've read a few. I still have part of my stack to get through. I haven't gotten to Werewolf by Night yet, so I'm glad that you liked it, Eric. I need to get to it. Infield Gang Massacre, highly recommend. I've been a fan of what Tom Condon's been doing with That Texas Blood and then carrying on to this, so all for it. Although I've heard people complain that it's too similar to Red Dead Redemption. I've never played that game. I don't know, so I'm enjoying this for what it is. And I'm enjoying Straczynski's the Madness. It's a kind of, darker take on superheroes, and it's just it's fresh. It's not even that it's fresh, it just feels fresh because it doesn't look like he's trying to appease anyone other than the story he's wanting to tell. So I'm enjoying that as well. Kelly Thompson's The Cole has beautiful art in it, and I'm trying to think of the artist's names. Mateo
Luis or something.
Yeah,
like that.
It's like painted. It's a freaking just gorgeous book. Story, I'm still kind of waiting to get fully hooked in, but the art is keeping me. The art is 100% keeping me for now. But those are 3 that I've read and enjoyed. Worth saying, like go spend some money.
Very nice. Jim from Weird Science. We talked about some comic books earlier. What are you recommending this week?
I'll go with the Enfield Gang Massacre #2, as well as Josh did. Also, Batman and Robin #1 at DC. It's an okay start. I actually am hoping it gets better and ties into a lot more things, but I did like that. Incredible Hulk #4, and then Joker, One Operation Joker, Chapter 6, the Bat Baby manga. I just give a shout out to.
Jim, read that Grompa book?
They were sold out, and I did. I've told my LCS
selling very well for me.
Yeah,
I'll just say, I hated it. I hated every page of it. Yeah, I can't.
I want to check
it
out.
Just on artwork alone, I would give it a 10.
Nah, I wouldn't. I don't like his style. I think that's the thing. It's whether you like the style or not. That's really gonna do, and it's not really my style. So
why are you a hater, Jim? Why are you a hater?
Yeah, really.
I thought that it was overwritten. I thought that the everything in that was clunky, and it's an oversized issue. But by the time I got done reading, I thought it was 700 pages. I needed some caffeine. But that's me.
Leave it to Jim to bring a little negativity to the stream before we're over.
I wasn't going to mention it.
Thank you very much to Kaare Andrews, amazing comic book writer, artist, director, for joining us today and talking some geek culture with us, schooling us up on some things, and killing off a misnomer about a Spider-Man raid series.
Hey guys, thanks for having me. It's been a lot of fun, and I don't check out every episode, but I do check them out every now and then, and I think it's a good show. Like, I think I would like it to be more normal for more pros to show up on these sort of streams and interact and engage, because I think part of the problem in the modern comic book world is because of the media has dissolved away, we're kept too far away from each other. And I don't think that's good. I think there should be a healthy interaction, and the passion's fine. Like, I don't mind the passion. I think that's good and healthy. And I think, the more we can normalize this sort of interaction, I think the better, the more healthier the industry will become.
Well, I agree. Like I said, thank you very much. And we'll see you all next Saturday. No special guests, but it'll just be us normies that haven't achieved anything in comics.